Dark night, strong wind, climbing in through the window. A female ruffian meets the prince at the prince's mansion. Evening. Jiu-si and Baiwanzi, both with serious expressions, are working hard to perform their technique. Those who don't know would think this master and servant pair are up to something big. Actually, they're just trying to create a space-time portal to travel to the prince's mansion. Jiu-si successfully entered the prince's mansion. She stealthily climbed up to the window. The room was pitch black. Jiu-si complained in her heart, this man really has the sleep schedule of an old man. He sleeps so early. Baiwanzi muttered under her breath. Host, you're more comfortable entering someone else's room than your own. The female thug showed no shame whatsoever. Instead, she looked smug. Anyway, he'll be my husband sooner or later. Getting familiar with him early is no problem. While she was still feeling self-satisfied, she accidentally stepped into thin air. Jiu-si fell directly down. It looked like she was about to eat dirt. A pair of large hands caught me from behind. Jiu's instantly fell into a warm embrace. There's a door, but I didn't use it. I had to climb through the window. Jiu's looked at Su Huaibei. Smilingly said, only if I climb through the window will someone worry about me. Su Huaibei gently put the little rascal down. Tell me, what brings you here this time? Jiu-si tilted her head, her eyes sparkling brightly. I wanted to see if you're okay. The sweet words made the single Baiwanzi on stage exclaim that he couldn't take it anymore. I'm leaving first. Regarding this little rascal, I've never had a chance against Huaibei. He pushed the desserts on the table towards Jiu-si with a smile. You. Don't climb in through the window next time. The little girl looked at the desserts, her heart filled with emotion. This man clearly doesn't like desserts. But because I woke up, I only prepared this much. By Beezy's thoughtful gift. Of course I have to savor it carefully. The late night scene. The carefree Akian is still sound asleep. She hasn't noticed the figure in the room at all. Su Huaibei places the wine and snacks on the bed. Even in her sleep, the little girl is still clutching her clothes tightly. The man looked at her with a doting expression. He sighed, such a little troublemaker. If Mu Yuanzhang knew I snuck into her room at night, he'd draw his sword and tear me apart. You certainly know how to cause trouble for this king. This is simply outrageous. The esteemed young lady of the general's manor was actually carried away from her own home by a mysterious figure. What on earth is going on? 15 minutes ago, Jiu-si was sitting alone in the small garden. Her brothers and Su Huaibei had all gone to Chunlai. Women were never allowed to participate in Chunlai, so she could only stay behind in the manor. Suddenly, the white ball beside her warned the host of danger. Before Jiu-si could react, a handkerchief soaked in a drug was already pressed against his face. He quickly closed his eyes and fainted. Immediately, two burly men carried him on their shoulders. Before leaving, one of the men wondered aloud, how could General Fu infiltrate so easily? It might be a trap. Let's go quickly. Maybe we can still catch up. To Chunlia's swift departure. Jiu-si on my shoulder quietly opened his eyes. They are taking me to the Chunlif hunting ground. Baiwanzi was spinning around anxiously. Host, you're just feigning unconsciousness. Aren't you afraid they'll do something to you on the way? But Jiu-si looked calm. Anyway, he'd wanted to go to the spring training for a while. Free transportation, why not use it? This carefree little girl decided to take a nap first. Before sleeping, she told Baiwanzi to record their route. If there's any danger, wake her up. After a long time, Jiu-si was woken up by Baiwanzi, who was under attack. He was placed in a cave. He only heard two burly men talking at the cave entrance. One of them sounded slightly worried. The little girl hasn't reacted yet. Isn't the dosage you gave her a bit too much? Don't make her sick. The other one didn't think so. It's better if she's unconscious. It's easier to deal with her unconscious. We have to wait here with her until Su Huaibei arrives. This little girl has such delicate skin. Don't hurt her. It looks like they won't be going into the cave for now. Jiu-si immediately had Baiwanzi open the map application. He quietly stood up, taking advantage of them not noticing, to make a quick trip to Huaibei. Baiwanzi watches Jiu-si opening the time-space gate, silently muttering to himself/herself. This is the most arrogant hostage I've ever seen. In the luxurious tent of Chunlai, Jiu-si carefully lifts the curtain of the luxurious tent to look inside. Her/his own man is not there. Jiu-si is furious. Standing in the empty luxurious tent, he thought, my family must be worried sick. I need to leave a message. He took off the jade pendant from his waist. He placed the jade pendant in a conspicuous place, and used a twig to write the character "an" meaning safe, on the ground. Having arranged all this, he intended to return to the cave and have a long sleep. Baiwanzi looked at Jiu-si askance. Host, it's rare to find a victim as cooperative as you. This little girl went to all this trouble. What's she up to? Have you ever seen a more defiant hostage? She pretended to faint, but actually used the bad guys as free transportation. While they thought she was still unconscious in the cave, he secretly used the time-space gate to let his family know he was safe. After letting them know he was safe, he secretly snuck back into the cave to continue his nap. These days, such a cooperative victim is indeed rare. In Mu's army tent, Mu Yuanzhang learned of the 9 division's disappearance. Surprised and alarmed, the general's legitimate daughter went missing from her own mansion. If this gets out, it'll be a laughingstock. If she simply wandered off due to her own playful nature, it would be fine. But if she's been abducted, Jussi's 2 older brothers are also extremely worried. They've all stated that they won't participate in the spring hunt. They'll go back to look for Jussi. Nonsense. The spring hunt is a major event. Our entire Mu family will withdraw from the spring hunt. What will the emperor think? And I haven't finished speaking yet. A guard reports from outside the tent. The guard enters carrying something. The prince ordered me to deliver this to the general. Just reporting that I'm safe. General, please calm down. Mu Yuanzhang saw that the guards had delivered Jiu-Si's jade pendant. His anxious heart immediately settled. Dismiss everyone else. After everyone left, Mu Yuanzhang stared at the jade pendant, muttering, what tricks is she up to now? Why contact the prince and not me? Old Mu, you're already getting jealous now. There will be more times for you to cry later. At this moment, in the cave, Jiu-Si and the little white dumpling were lying together. One person, one dumpling. Their stomachs were already rumbling with hunger. Jiu-Si secretly complained. Being kidnapped isn't so bad. Bai Wanzi turned over, looking at the 2 big men outside the cave diligently roasting chicken. What's so bad about it? I even got a free ride. And I've already reported my safety. Someone will even bring you food soon. 2 burly men finished roasting the chicken. They carried the food into the cave. Jiu-Si, still looking sleepy after waking up, saw the men. He immediately called out to Shang Xian. Who are you? Where is this? What do you want to do to me? He trembled all over. He looked pitiful. His stomach grumbled uncontrollably. One of the big men fiercely devoured the roast chicken. I warn you, don't make a sound. Otherwise, I'll throw you to the dogs. Jiu's happily gnawed on the roast chicken. Those 2 unlucky kids at the cave entrance are still chatting. We can't hit them, and we can't scold them. We have to feed and care for them well. We've practically kidnapped an ancestor. Stop complaining. Wait until Chunlai starts. There will be other tasks. Besides kidnapping Jiu-Si, what other tasks are they talking about? These are the most unlucky kidnappers I've ever seen. Not only are they providing free transportation for their hostage, they also have to feed and take care of him well. They've practically kidnapped an ancestor. Come back. Jussi munched on a fragrant chicken leg, happily watching the 2 unlucky men bicker. A cold wind howled through the night. A mysterious atmosphere pervaded the entire valley. Bai Wanzi suddenly spoke in a serious tone. Rarely serious, host. Not good. It seems a powerful force is enveloping this area. They haven't noticed us yet, but if this continues, we'll explode sooner or later. Jiu-Si's sleepiness instantly vanished. He furrowed his brows. He immediately ordered Bai Wanzi to shut down the extra functions, hide the existence of the power suppressing him, which Bai Wanzi mentioned before. It was actually in the spring hunt grounds. The next day, in the spring hunting grounds, the emperor announces the official start of the spring hunt. Everyone is permitted to enter and hunt. Mu Yuanzhang is preparing to enter. A voice calls out to him from behind. It's the Grand Minister. The Grand Minister looks at the general with concern, saying he looks rather haggard. Mu Yuanzhang explains that he ate the wrong kind of wild fruit from the hunting grounds. If others knew that a great general like you couldn't sleep well because he was jealous of his daughter, he would lose face. The Chancellor, feigning concern, said, General, you must take care of your health. I heard that a nephew from the Mu family also didn't come to the spring day banquet today because of a sprain. I think the sprain is a lie. Staying to accompany Miss Mu is the truth. Speaking of which, the relationship between the Mu family's sons and Miss Mu is truly enviable. I heard that not long ago, Miss Mu fell from the opera stage. Young Master Mu almost ate the actor alive. He spoke while observing Mu Yuanzhang's expression. Conversation ender. Mu Yuanzhang simply waved his hand. Just the reckless actions of a young man, he said. Then turned away. I rushed here from Jingdong yesterday. Your Excellency must be exhausted from the journey. You should rest well. Behind him, the Chancellor's subordinate, Mao Guang, said, if that's the case, with such deep sibling affection, I'd very much like to see how these wolf cubs of the Mu family react to Mu Jiu's accident. Will this hunting ground be completely disrupted? It was this old geezer who ordered Jiu-Si's kidnapping. The reason he kidnapped Jiu-Si to the hunting ground was to use Jiu-Si's life to create a conflict between the Mu family and Su Huaibei. Back to the cave. The 2 unlucky kidnappers were discussing at the cave entrance that the spring hunt should have started by now. Throw that little girl out. The other one quickly followed suit. I've been stuck in this remote, creepy place for so long. I'm about to go crazy. The 2 of them entered the cave and saw. Where is she? Where Mu Jiu's should have been. Only a rope remained. No one is in sight. The two of them immediately panicked. Their first reaction wasn't to look for the person. Instead, they started blaming each other. Weren't you watching him, her the whole time? You let the person go missing. Just as they were arguing fiercely, a voice rang out. Hey, there's Josie standing at the door, hands on hips, looking at him fearlessly. She has an innocent smile on her face. Two big brothers. Are you looking for me? As the saying goes, love makes one blind. When a soldier prince meets a rogue woman, he's completely at her mercy. There's no such thing as reason. In the cave, two kidnappers are still arguing over 94's disappearance. The little girl suddenly appears at the cave entrance. The men exchange glances. None of them know how this little girl managed to escape. Waiting for them to continue pondering. A fight and the men's cries of pain come from inside the cave. In a short while, two unlucky fellows lay on the ground, their heads covered in bumps. They were unconscious. Baiwanzi clapped his hands. A cocky expression spread across his round face. Host, what do we do next? Josie sat on one of the large men, yawning. He wasn't worried about his situation at all. There must be a reason why they left me here. Someone will come soon. Suddenly, his nose twitched again. The scent on those two people is somewhat familiar. As he was racking his brain trying to place the familiar scent, Baiwanzi, who had been relaxing, suddenly became alert. Yong'an. He looked at the figure appearing on the screen. His tone was a little gossipy. It's the person you're thinking of. At this moment, Su Huaibei was secretly worried. The spring hunting ground was really too large. Finding Josie would be extremely difficult. Suddenly, a small figure pounced towards him. Su Huaibei was startled. He instinctively wanted to defend himself. When he looked down and saw the small figure, his body froze. He forcefully controlled himself. He saw the little girl in his arms lift her head. Her eyes filled with joy. There's a hint of complaint in her voice. Why did you take so long? I've been waiting for you for ages. Su Huaibei looked at the slightly disheveled little girl. He was about to scold her for running around again, but the little girl beat him to it. Her eyes welling up as she insisted she hadn't been running around. I was kidnapped. He turned around, looking aggrieved, and pointed to two men lying on the ground not far away. They were so fierce. Su Huaibei looked at the two unlucky kidnappers who were beaten black and blue. Someone said those two were very fierce. He then looked at the person in front of him, who was unharmed. And even looked spirited, the kidnapped person. Li Jiyu is biased. It was a frantic struggle in his mind. Facing this little rascal. What else could he do? He crouched down, not questioning how the big man had been tied up, but said with some guilt, I should have stayed by your side. It was my negligence. This is so unfair. She's so partial to her man. It's really endearing. Josie happily throws herself into Su Huaibei's embrace. His scent is the most reassuring to her. Before they could fully relax, Josie suddenly raised her head. Right. I remembered. The scent on these two kidnappers is the same as on Shen Yingying and Lin Ziqian. Could everything that happened be orchestrated by the same mastermind? Who gave her the courage? This little girl who's not even as tall as a wild boar, to talk about capturing ferocious beasts? Last time, we mentioned the kidnapped girl relying on a system cheat. Not only did she report her safety to her family, but she also used the two kidnappers as her husband and wife. After using them, she beat them up severely. When the prince arrived, Josie had already subdued the two kidnappers completely. Su Huaibei turned around and told his subordinates to go back and report their safety to Mu Yuanzhang. Josie, on the other hand, fell into deep thought. The kidnappers smelled the same as Lin Ziqian and Shen Yingying. In this matter, what roles did they play? While he was deep in thought, he felt the man's sharp gaze. To prevent Su Huaibei from asking more detailed questions, Josie immediately changed the subject, asking Chunlai with a bright smile what he was going to catch. That's a question. The little girl isn't even as tall as a wild boar, yet she wants to go hunting. So Su Huaibei suggested they go catch rabbits instead. You see, the little girl is small, but her ambitions are not. Since we're at the spring hunting grounds, we naturally should hunt for ferocious beasts. Su Huaibei asked Josie, aren't you afraid of ferocious beasts devouring you? Josie's face is full of trust in the man. With you here, what do I have to fear? Seeing Su Huaibei still hesitating, Josie starts using her coquettish skills again. Suddenly, Baiwanzi gives a warning. Someone's coming. Josie's expression changes. I suddenly changed my mind. He clenched his fists. His face was full of excitement. Let's go catch the assassin. In the bushes, two figures, one big and one small, were secretly observing the situation inside the cave. Two suspicious-looking people were seen at the cave entrance. It seems they weren't after Josie. Josie asked Su Huaibei, were there any important people from the village participating this time? Su Huaibei nodded in affirmation, but his heart was full of questions. In the dense forest, it's hard to find anyone. How did this little girl find the assassin? Jussi suddenly remembered something. Was it the imperial concubine? In his past life, this spring hunt was orchestrated by the emperor to please the imperial concubine. But the imperial concubine suddenly passed away shortly after the hunt. It seems the events of that year weren't so simple. He immediately had Baiwanzi monitor the situation inside the cave. Sure enough, inside the cave lay the emperor's beloved imperial concubine Dun. Jiu-Si immediately grabbed Su Huaibei's sleeve. With an excited expression, he said, "I guess the imperial concubine must be in the cave. We have to rescue her." Then he whispered in Su Huaibei's ear, secretly explaining his rescue plan. However, Su Huaibei hadn't even finished listening before he frowned and refused. "No." Jiu-Si covered the man's mouth. "I know you're protecting me, but right now, this is truly the only way. What exactly is the little girl planning?" It's made even the usually calm Duke Xiaoyao change his expression drastically. What kind of idea did that little girl come up with, to make the soldiers and the Duke so shocked? Jiu-Si, using a system cheat, discovered that the emperor's most beloved concubine was unconscious in a cave. She, reborn, knows. Soon after the spring split in the previous life, Consort Duan suddenly passed away. It seems things aren't that simple. She decided to save Consort Duan. After her suggestion was vetoed by Su Huaibei, she immediately covered the man's legs. This is the only way now. Looking at this little girl with determined eyes, Su Huaibei remained silent for a while before finally agreeing. A rustling sound came from the bushes. The assassin by the cave immediately became alert. What sound? As soon as the words left his mouth, Jiu-Si burst out of the bushes, falling at the assassin's feet, facing this little girl who had suddenly appeared. The two men were at a loss. The scene became a little awkward. Jiu-Si's hands were bound. He looked terrified. "Who are you? I warn you not to come closer. Otherwise, my father won't let you off." The assassin immediately understood Jiu-Si's identity. They didn't hesitate to leave Jiu-Si in the cave. But they didn't see what was behind them. Jiu-Si, who had just been looking calm, immediately changed his expression. He had Baiwanzi monitoring the assassins. He only heard two assassins continuing their conversation at the cave entrance. "Didn't you say that the Mu family girl had already been thrown over there? How could she be here?" "Who knows, he's just lucky. I wasn't shot dead like a beast by Su Huaibei." Good heavens, the other party is truly vicious. The spring hunting grounds are dense with trees. How can one distinguish between people and their schemes? If Su Huaibei falls for their trick, then the prince's mansion and the Mu family will have no hope of reconciliation. But who is the master behind these people? While I was pondering this in the temple, a woman's voice came from behind him. He turned around. He saw that Consort Duan had already woken up. "You're the daughter of the Mu family, aren't you? I met you once a few years ago." Jiu-Si politely introduced herself, while thinking whether she should make the consort faint again, to avoid him seeing her. "It's not good to fight yourself." "What's the matter?" But Consort Duan told Jiu-Si to wait, and escape after dark. "Those people are coming for me. They won't hurt you." Jiu-Si, remember that Consort Duan is a princess from the small kingdom of Xiaobo. Xiaobo's full name is Shanggu. Even imperial concubine Gui herself was once a master. Thinking of this, he immediately approached the imperial concubine. He whispered, "Your Majesty, Jiu-Si is here to save you. The prince is just outside the cave. We can work together inside and out to rescue you. But we need your Majesty's help. My little darlings, guess what ingenious tricks this clever girl has up her sleeve this time. How incredibly fierce can a life of cheat codes be? After subduing two burly men single-handedly, to save the emperor's beloved concubine, she pretends to be captured, infiltrating the enemy's lair, preparing to cooperate with the prince from within, to wipe out the kidnappers." The 9 divisions in the cave learned that the imperial concubine had practiced martial arts since childhood, and had the ability to protect herself. They decided to ask her for help. At this time, he went to Huaibei and stationed guards at the cave entrance. His face was gloomy. He had never approved of the 9 divisions risking their lives. He originally disagreed with it, but there's no better way. "I only hope the little girl is safe and sound." Suddenly, a woman's cry came from inside the cave. "There's a mouse." This was the prearranged signal between Jiu-Si and Su Huaibei. It meant they could act. The leader of the kidnappers heard the shout. He grumbled and walked into the cave. "This little bitch is so delicate. She scared the hell out of me." But upon closer inspection, the place where Consort Duan and Jiu-Si were tied up was empty. The leader of the kidnappers was shocked. He was about to call for help. Before he could speak, Consort Duan appeared behind him. The kidnapper suddenly fell down with a thud. Consort Duan was completely bewildered. She hadn't even made a move yet. How did he fall down? Unbeknownst to her, it was Jiu-Si who secretly knocked the kidnapper out with silver needles. Of course, he wouldn't reveal his true strength. Instead, he attributed the credit to Su Huaifei. Su Huaibei was brave and valiant. So Consort Duan didn't do anything. He thought he should quickly crouch down. He pulled out the knife from the kidnapper's waist, and instructed Jussi to hide behind him. Suddenly, a figure flashed into the cave. Consort Duan immediately became alert. He was about to raise his knife, but the little maid beside him rushed forward instead. Xiao happily threw herself into Su Huaibei's arms. Su Huaibei picked up Xiao very naturally. Then he looked at concubine Duan. The queen is in serious trouble. I will take you back first. Concubine Duan shook her head. He expressed firmly, I want to stay here. Let's see who the mastermind is. Xiao blinked her big eyes, thinking to herself that this lady was quite different from others. Normally, other noblewomen would have fled at the first sign of trouble, but she was willing to stay. At this time, the subdued bandits at the cave entrance were clutching their throats, letting out pained sounds, and quickly collapsing to the ground. The police officer approached and investigated Maxi. He discovered that everyone had committed suicide by poisoning. It seems these people came prepared to avoid leaving any evidence, since leaving no survivors is better. Suddenly, an arrow was shot. Su Huaibei reacted quickly, picking up 94, presumably a person or code name, and dodging to the side. One problem's barely solved, and another arises. Who did this time? Have you ever seen such a capable imperial consort? Other consorts might panic if kidnapped, but she calmly prepared to cover others' escape. Reinforcements finally arrived, and others might not have time to flee, but she intends to stay put. Let's see what the Dai people's intentions really are. Unfortunately, the mastermind was well prepared. Seeing that the situation was exposed, all the kidnappers committed suicide by poisoning themselves, leaving no survivors. While Su Huaibei was carefully analyzing the reasons behind the kidnapping, a sudden arrow flew towards him. Su Huaibei immediately scooped up 94 and dodged to the side. Xiao, looking at the arrow embedded in the tree trunk, was visibly shaken. She asked Bai Wanzi what was going on. Bai Wanzi analyzed the situation, but found that the person who shot the arrow wasn't in a hurry. She went forward and removed the note from the arrow. Opening it, it read, "Beware your back. This place is not safe for a long stay. Leave immediately." Hughes carefully examined the blunted arrowhead. He could tell that quite a few merchants were involved, but it seemed like some markings on the blade had been erased. He asked Bai Wanzi if he could restore the arrow to its original state. Bai Wanzi immediately said he could, but it would take time. He suggested they leave the area first, because a pack of wolves was approaching. Fortunately, they weren't hostile. After Bai Wanzi's warning, Xiao also noticed the rustling sounds coming from the surrounding bushes. The spring hunting ground is just a place of entertainment for the nobles and royals. How could there be such ferocious beasts as a wolf pack here? At that moment, he glanced out of the corner of his eye. He saw that Consort Duan had already drawn her bow, preparing to shoot the wolf pack. Although the wolf pack showed no hostility, but if we initiate an attack, it will surely enrage them. Before 94 could stop it, the sword was already released. Immediately, howls echoed from the wolf pack. They were indeed enraged. Baring their teeth, they ran towards 94 and the others. Soon, 94 and his group were surrounded by the wolf pack. A wolf attacked first. Su Huaibei quickly picked up Jussi. Jingji also raised his sword to fight. The wild wolf lunged. The wolf pack attacked one after another. While protecting Jussi, Su Huaibei also used his powerful Vajra kick to repel many wild wolves. Seeing that everyone had expended a lot of energy dealing with the wolf pack, Xiao immediately asked Bai Wanzi if the protective shield could withstand the wolf pack. Bai Wanzi replied that the protective shield was barely sufficient, but it's likely others won't be able to be protected together. Xiao reached out to touch Su Huaibei's pale face, his concern evident. He worriedly asked if he was alright. Suddenly, a wild wolf lunged at Xiao from behind. Su Huaibei quickly pulled Xiao behind him. His arm was just barely grazed by the wolf's bite. Jussi's face showed fear and worry for Su Huaibei. "Are you alright?" Su Huaibei was in so much pain that he broke out in a cold sweat, but to reassure Jussi, he pretended to be fine. Jussi, who had always been protected by Su Huaibei, felt immense guilt. Her body was so weak. Was being reborn a curse? I still couldn't protect the people I wanted to protect. He suddenly made up his mind. With a determined look, he told Bai Wanzi, "No matter what, I need to restore my energy and forward immediately." He is a general's daughter who has been reborn after completing 5,000 interdimensional missions. There was a slight error in the system during the rebirth process. Unexpectedly, she returned to her childhood. Mu Jiuxi is frustrated by being trapped in this small body. He can't do anything effectively. Even going out requires others' close protection. After Su Huaibei was injured protecting him, he made up his mind. No matter what, he must restore his energy immediately. Bai Wanzi informed him, there is a way to grow up immediately, but he will lose all the points he accumulated in the previous 5 days. Violating this world's rules will also result in physical repercussions. Jiu-C's expression was resolute. He immediately redeemed them. In this life, he didn't want to lose the people he wanted to protect again. As the system prompted that the exchange was successful, Jiu-C was immediately surrounded by a sphere of light. His body was also slowly changing. At this time, the people of Chu Huaibei were still struggling to resist the wolf pack. He noticed the wolves suddenly becoming more ferocious, and all looking in the same direction. He couldn't help but look back as well. Jiu-C, who had been a delicate little girl, she grew into a graceful young lady. Jiu-C met Su Huaibei's gaze. She was suddenly startled. How could she have forgotten this? Even with the changes, she was afraid she would be considered a monster. Bai Wanzi had already considered this matter thoroughly. Under the system's intervention, no one in this world can detect Jiu-C's change. Everyone will think he's just an unremarkable girl. Jiu-C instantly regained his confidence. It's time to show my true strength. He drew a long sword, leaping towards the wolf pack. Before Su Huaibei could stop him, he struck. I've felled a wolf. Su Huaibei watched the girl's swift movements, feeling an inexplicable change in his heart. Suddenly, another wolf lunged at Jiu-C. His eyes sharpened. He threw his long sword. It pierced the wolf's body. Meanwhile, on the other side of the spring hunting grounds, a disheveled figure appeared, leaning on a cane. It was Jiu-C's sixth brother, Mu Ru Kong. He was now the biggest victim in history. He had originally set out with his two other brothers to find Jiu-C, but they had gotten separated along the way. Even his horse had disappeared at some point. The unlucky sixth brother collapsed to the ground. In the past 3 days in the village, if I hadn't been able to meet up with my brothers, I would have starved to death here. Suddenly, he saw a trail of blood on the ground. Could it be left by prey? At this thought, Lao Lu's hope for survival was rekindled. He excitedly followed the trail of blood. In front of a large, deep pit, he stopped. Such a big pit. It seems the prey must have been enormous. But when he looked inside, a person was lying there in the pit. Prince Jing. How could he be lying here? The young girl had grown into a graceful maiden in the blink of an eye. If this happened now, I wouldn't just be captured as a monster. At the very least, I'd be trending on the hot searches for days. Luckily, the female lead has been reborn, with a system and cheats, so she handled things secretly and smoothly. Night fell, and Jiu-C and her group sat around a bonfire. He looked at Su Huaibei with a smug look on his face. Am I not amazing? Su Huaibei draped a cloak over him with a doting expression. He murmured in agreement, praising Jiu-C's awesomeness. In reality, he secretly thought he was a little too amazing. Well, we all know that Bei is already starting to worry about his future place in the family. Consort Duan watched their playful interaction. She couldn't help but admire the wonderful relationship between the prince and Miss Mu. He decided to play wingman for the two of them. So he spoke to Jiu-C, saying, I hear the Mu family's sons all spoil you terribly. I wonder what kind of husband will ever catch your eye. He looked at Su Huaibei meaningfully after saying that. Turning to Jiu-C, he asked if he had a sweetheart. Su Huaibei worried silently from the side. Jiu-C was always outspoken. If he were to say it was himself, the relationship between the prince's mansion and the Mu family is bound to attract attention. Jiu-C secretly glanced at Su Huaibei and smiled subtly. Then, she pretended to be shy and said it was an arranged marriage, a match made in heaven. She said that she would listen to her parents on matters of marriage. Well, the little girl's words didn't reveal her true feelings, but Bei felt inexplicably uneasy. In another cave, Prince Jing awoke from his unconsciousness. He touched his still aching head. Suddenly, a loud snoring sound nearby caught his attention. Lao Lu, the hapless sixth brother, was sprawled beside him, sleeping like a log. Lao Lu stirred at the sound. His awakening. Seeing Prince Jing awaken, Lao Lu rushed towards him, excitedly exclaiming how incredibly difficult it was to meet someone he knew. After a while, a pitch-black grilled fish was offered to Prince Jing. Prince Jing looked at the fish, completely charred and almost burnt to a crisp, secretly wondering if it was even edible. Lao Lu, standing to the side, eagerly urged Prince Jing to eat first. Under his fervent gaze, Prince Jing reluctantly took a bite. Lao Lu immediately clenched his fists excitedly, his face full of anticipation as he asked how it was. The cold and ruthless Prince Jing's curt, "Not good," broke Lao Lu's heart, and while he was still reeling from the blow, he threw away the grilled fish. At that moment, Lao Lu's keen nose picked up a fragrant smell in the air. He's drooling, eyes sparkling. Someone's cooking something delicious. At this moment, Jiu-C is still muttering to himself while stirring a pot of soup. Suddenly, a figure darts out from the nearby bushes. Who is it? What kind of sparks will they collide with? This girl was still muttering to herself and stirring a pot of soup a second ago. The next second, the pot and soup disappeared in a flash from his hand, vanished without a trace. Jiu-C watched the boy bury his head in the pot, gobbling down the food. Could this be her own carefree Mu Yongkang? Mu Yongkang heard someone call his name. He suddenly turned his head. His mouth was still stained with leftover food. He saw Jiu-Si. Immediately, tears welled up in his eyes, and he dropped the pot in his hand. Okay, actually, the food in the pot had already been devoured by him. He hugged Jiu-Si. Crying and shouting, he finally found his sister. At this time, another breathless figure appeared. He saw Jiu-Si, who had grown up. So that's how the energy fluctuation yesterday happened. His eyes flashed. I found you. Mu Jiu-Si. Could the other force by Wanzi mentioned be Prince Jing? Let's leave that as a question for now. Seeing that it was Jiu-Si's clingy husband, the person's name/title, let's just call him Old Six, the person's name/title, relaxed. Su Huaibei, who had been extremely vigilant just moments ago, finally relaxed. Su Huaijing asked Su Huaibei what he was doing there. He briefly explained it as a chance encounter. Seeing his reluctance to elaborate, Su Huaijing didn't press further. She didn't ask any more. At this moment, Bai Tuanzi appeared, holding the sword that had almost injured Jiu-Si earlier. He had restored the markings that had been erased from the sword. Jiu-Si took one look. The Mu family crest was clearly visible on it. He was greatly startled. Could it be one of his cousins from the Mu family playing tricks? Then he looked at Lao Lu, who was still licking the bottom of the pot. He dismissed the thought. It couldn't be my elder brother. Whoever it is, dares to utilize the Mu family, must be prepared to die. Time's up. Inside the royal camp, everyone was tallying the results of the hunt. Jiu-Si and his group appeared at the hunting ground exit. The emperor saw Consort Duan. His face immediately lit up with joy. Mu Yuanzhang saw Jiu-Si safe and sound. He almost collapsed from exhaustion waiting. Jiu-Si excitedly threw himself into Mu Yuanzhang's embrace, but the enemy was still in the hunting ground. So he hid in Mu Yuanzhang's arms. He also secretly observed the situation. The prime minister was greatly surprised by the appearance of Jiu-Si and the imperial concubine. His expression was tense. Sure enough, he's involved. The Chunlai was originally an activity for male members of the royal family. Even the much-favored imperial concubine was only allowed to participate because the emperor made an exception. But there's a young girl mixed in with the crowd. What's going on here? The emperor looked at Jiu-Si. The Mu family girl always appears here. But this is not a place you should be. Jiu-Si, however, kept crying in Mu Yuanzhang's arms. She looked extremely frightened. Su Huaibei explained from the side that when he found Jiu-Si, she was almost devoured by a wild beast. He couldn't explain where he came from. He seemed to be terrified. The emperor heard this, his face full of disbelief. How could there be wild beasts in the imperial hunting grounds? Consort Duan already suspected the emperor. With her pitiful look, explained to him what happened with the wolf pack. At this time, the guards reported that Prince Duan was attacked by a pack of wolves. He was seriously injured. The emperor immediately ordered the imperial physicians to be summoned. He also fully believed the matter of ferocious beasts appearing in the hunting grounds. The prime minister spoke from the side, everyone. Since you say you encountered wolves, where are the wolf carcasses? May we have the pleasure of seeing them? Su Huaibei had long anticipated that some would not believe him. So he had already made preparations. He instructed Jingji to bring up the wolf that had been killed. The chancellor knelt down and stroked the wolf's corpse. Regardless, this year's spring hunt's top prize belongs to Wang Yi. With a single sentence, he diverted everyone's attention away from the matter of the beast appearing in the hunting grounds. Jiu-Si observed this scene from the side. How could a normal person be so gentle in stroking a beast transformed into a black chicken? He then ordered by Wanzi to revive the wolf. The wolf, which had been dead, slowly began to walk. Everyone present was shocked. The emperor immediately ordered the chancellor to be protected. But the wolf surprisingly and obediently prostrated itself before the chancellor. Jiu-Si exclaimed with an innocent look on her face. I never thought the chancellor and this beast knew each other. A simple sentence connected the incident the chancellor and everyone else had anticipated. The emperor's face turned furious. This wolf is truly related to a love affair. The chancellor hurriedly knelt down to explain. Wolves are inherently wild and untamable. I, your humble servant, a mere scholar, how could I possibly be involved with such a beast? Moreover, I hear that all things in the world possess spirits. This wolf has lived in the mountains for a long time. One doesn't usually hurt others without reason. This sentence again points the finger at Consort Duan. It implies that he is a villain. Only then was he attacked by a pack of wolves. Consort Duan is not someone easy to manipulate. He immediately begged the emperor to uphold justice for him. Seeing the chaos, Su Huaibei knelt down and volunteered to go and investigate. He cares about this matter. The emperor has long been exhausted by this matter. To see someone take the initiative to handle this. He is impressed by the prime minister at this moment, but secretly bowed to the 9 ministries. The way he reversed the situation in a few words. That girl from the Mu family is not kind. Thus, the spring trials ended. In the imperial palace, Jiao Si came to the palace at the invitation of consort Duan Gui. Bai Wanzi wondered why he called Jiao Si, but Jiao Si looked fearless. Friend or foe? Hui Hui pointed out. In the sunny imperial palace, a young girl walked along the path. Ever since Jiao Si saved the imperial consort along with the carefree King Su Huaibei at the hunting grounds, she thought she would have no further dealings with the imperial consort. Unexpectedly, a few days later, the imperial consort invited her to the palace for a meeting. Unsure of the imperial consort's intentions, Jiao Si could only react as the situation unfolded. She arrived at the imperial consort's palace, where several young and beautiful ladies were already seated. Consort Duan greeted Jiao Si warmly. She then began to introduce the ladies present. This is the Empress Dowager's niece. She should address the Prince of Xiaoyao as cousin. This is the younger sister of the Prince of Xiaoyao's former companion. They are also acquaintances. This is... Consort Duan pointed to another young lady, getting ready to quit drinking. The wine steward quickly interjected. Who is this person to the prince? Consort Duan smiled gently. This person has no relation whatsoever to the prince. She's from Minister Li Buchan's family. The wine steward finally understood. So many young ladies, either it's related to the King Xiaoyao, or she's of marriageable age. They are all here to snatch my husband. He was not to be outdone. This humble servant will also introduce myself. He pointed at himself and said confidently. This is the only daughter of the Duke of the State, and also the future princess consort of King Xiaoyao. These words sent the girls present into peals of laughter. Clearly, they didn't take Jiao Si's words seriously. Even consort Duan secretly gasped. Logically speaking, if it were true, a normal person would try to hide it. His playful words. Could it be that he and Su Huaibei have no secret affair? Bai Wanzi was secretly attacking from the side as well. Host, shouldn't you reflect on this? Why is it that when I tell the truth, no one believes me? Jiao Si looked helpless. Forget it, forget it. No more explanations. They're all trying to steal my man. Suddenly, someone pulled on her sleeve from the side. Jiao Si turned to look. It was a girl with a high ponytail. A spirited and valiant young woman. She was He Xianzu, the eldest daughter of the Prince of Hedong County. He Jun was not at all interested in the usual accomplishments of other noblewomen, calligraphy, painting, music, and chess. Seeing Jiao Si's straightforward and generous nature, he wanted to invite Jiao Si to go birdwatching in the imperial garden. Jiao Si looked at the girl before her, her face full of anticipation. After a moment's thought, their eyes met, reaching an agreement. These two restless girls, what will they get up to in the imperial gardens? The girl was inexplicably summoned to the palace by the imperial concubine, only to be introduced to a bevy of beautiful women. Each girl was there to compete for her man. Jiao Si was worrying about how to handle this meeting. He Junxian, who also disliked following the rules, invited her to go birdwatching in the imperial garden. They hit it off immediately. In the imperial garden, He Junxian walked ahead with a smile. Bai Wanzi silently started to browse through history, introducing Jiao Si to He Junxian's high martial arts aspirations. He had even been on the battlefield. He's a good person. But he also secretly loves the Prince Xiaoyao. It's rare for Bai Wanzi, who is usually so carefree, to take the initiative to conduct background checks. This surprised Jiao Si quite a bit. Suddenly, someone called out to him from behind. Jiao Si turned around and saw Jing Ji. He asked Jing Ji why she was here. Jing Ji explained that the prince heard that he had jumped into the palace. So my words were left unfinished. By a clear cough. Then Su Huaibei appeared in the imperial garden. He naturally reached out and removed a fallen leaf from Jiao Si's hair. He asked with concern whether he had been kept in the dark. Suddenly, he noticed someone nearby. It was He Junxian. Su Huaibei immediately resumed his unapproachable demeanor. He Jun had always admired Su Huaibei. Seeing him, he became extremely nervous. He hurriedly bowed and approached Su Huaibei. Su Huaibei merely gave a curt nod. He responded faintly. He Jun continued to ingratiate himself, saying, "We haven't seen each other since 3 years ago. Your grace is even more impressive than before." Su Huaibei didn't give him any face at all. He simply walked past him. As for this stubborn soldier, smuggling was impossible. He could only awkwardly bid farewell to He Jun. Then he quickly followed Su Huaibei's footsteps. After walking a few steps, he looked back, still worried. Jian and Jun remained where they were, but they heard Su Huaibei, already seated on the swing, invite them to join him. In a moment, there will be no one around. Su Huaibei put his arm around Jussi and went over together. Jussi looked at the weary Su Huaibei. He didn't seem to have rested well. It seems the Chunlai matter is rather thorny. He gently leaned against Su Huaibei's shoulder, an image of tranquil peace. Suddenly, Bai Wanzi's system popped up a notification that someone was coming. The person was Duan Wang. How could he be here? The love story between the Regent King and the reborn girl is quite lively. Besides the frequent appearance of female rivals, there are even male obstacles. This man who appeared at an inopportune moment. It's Su Huaibei's older brother. Su Huaiduan suddenly appeared in the imperial garden. What does he want? Su Huaibei told Jussi to hide first. He appeared himself to block Prince Duan's path. Su Huaiduan was very surprised to see Su Huaibei alone in the garden. He was quite astonished. But he didn't. He only wanted to ask Su Huaibei if he had seen Miss Mu. I heard from Her Imperial Majesty the concubine that he came to the imperial garden. He specifically brought a box of fragrant tree sprouts. The young concubine smiled faintly. He actually harbored such wicked intentions towards his own woman. Su Huaibei, upon hearing this, looked displeased. Third brother, watch your words. Hiding behind. Jiu-Si and Bai Wanzi were secretly observing their conversation. Bai Wanzi said angrily that Prince Duan is nothing but a paper tiger. He's no match for the handsome Prince Xiaoyao. His manner is full of women. More lively than birds in springtime. He even dares to hit on you. Jiu-Si looked disdainful. He understood that the Prince Duan's unprovoked kindness was simply because he coveted the 3 imperial tombs behind him. Seeing that Prince Duan was about to enter his hiding place, he immediately ordered Bai Wanzi to release some hornets, to drive him away. At the mention of playing pranks, Bai Wanzi immediately perked up. Okay. Look carefully. He gathered his strength, and finally produced a huge hornet. Jussi was already numb to Bai Manzi's usual shoddy workmanship and delivery. He was numb to it. But just one hornet? It's really too perfunctory. Jian Jiu-Si actually questioned me. This incredibly confident little dumpling immediately panicked. This dumpling's creations are absolutely top-notch. These hornets sting painfully. Over there, Prince Duan is still circling around Su Huaibei. Suddenly, a hornet flew over, and it didn't sting anyone. It was just coming straight for him. He frantically tried to shoo away the wasp. Su Huaibei remained calm beside him. Everything was fine just now. Could it be that the fragrance on third brother attracted the wasps? That was clearly a sarcastic remark, implying he frequented flower houses. That's why he smells of flowers. The wasp persistently following him irritated Prince Duan. He hurriedly turned and left in a hurry. Prince Duan had just left. A slender jade finger poked Su Huaibei's cheek. So handsome, but always with a straight face. More like an old man than an old man. Su Huaibei still had a serious expression. He grabbed Jiu-Si's hand. You are not someone he can just make jokes about. For the domineering regent king, anyone who dares to covet his woman is essentially dancing on a minefield. Even if that person is his own brother. Prince Duan, who had originally planned to offer fragrant powder and wine, was chased away by a wasp. Afterwards, Su Huaibei's expression remained unchanged. He grabbed Jiu-Si's hand, indicating he's not someone others can joke around with casually. Seeing Su Huaibei protecting her like this, Jiu-Si, moved, comforted the jealous man, assuring him that she wouldn't let the Prince Dun take advantage of her. And seeing as he behaved well, she gave him a chance to send her home. Walking on the road, Su Huaibei suddenly remembered something. He reminded Jiu-Si to try to go out less in the coming days. After all, they've ruined the old fox, the Grand Minister's, plans several times before. I guess the system has already. Jiu-Si looked guilty. I'm afraid it won't work. My mother accepted the invitation. I guess there will be many banquets to attend in the coming days. Several days later, Xia Manor was bustling with visitors. Mother, with a sly and cheerful smile, introduced Jiu-Si to Madame Xia. Madame Xia warmly grasped Jiu-Si's hand. My daughter is so much better. My son is practically going to ruin the country. Having said that, she immediately beckoned to the young man standing nearby. A youth with delicate features approached. He was Madame Xia's son. Madame Xia instructed Xia Qingjing to take the wine steward for a tour. The two mothers simultaneously showed relieved smiles. The matchmaking couldn't be more obvious. Xia Qingjing walks with Jiu-Si in the courtyard. They had never met before. The atmosphere is quite awkward. Jiu-Si silently sweats. After walking for a while, where are we going? He's not trying to sell me off, is he? But the boy was still scratching his head, racking his brains. What kind of things do girls his age like to read? And where are all the servants? They've all disappeared. So careless with their lives. Suddenly, he saw a figure flash past. Third brother has finally met his savior. He's the best at winning over girls. Xia Qingjing was about to speak. He cried out, but a hand covered his mouth. Jiu-Si quietly signaled him to be silent. The two of them secretly crouched by the courtyard gate and looked inside. 5 or 6 people lay scattered in the courtyard. Each of them held a small bottle in their hand. They looked irrational, as if intoxicated and floating in bliss. To think that a gathering to take drugs would happen in the esteemed Xia Manor. It was supposed to be an awkward blind date. But I unexpectedly discovered a group of people using drugs. Jiu-Si felt secretly worried. This kind of thing didn't happen in my past life. What's going on? Xia Qingjing had also never seen such a scene before, and didn't understand the severity of the problem. He was still peeking through the doorway. Naiji Jiu-si directly grabbed his collar from behind. He pulled him away. The two of them went to a secluded place. Jiu-si asked who all the people in the courtyard were. Xie Cheng touched his still aching neck. He honestly answered that besides his third younger brother, there were also young masters from other families. He saw Jiu-si's serious expression. I don't know what happened. I only know that this girl faces fierce competition. Jiu-si waves her hand. She perfunctorily says, this is not something we can control. Just pretend you didn't see it. She thinks to herself, this happened in Xiecheng, and the reliability of Xie Qingjing is still uncertain. Xie Qingjing sees Jiu-si turn and leave. I never intended to tell him the truth. He reached out resentfully, blocking me, saying, how can you recognize me and then not recognize me? Jiu-si grabbed his outstretched hand. With a swift move, he threw the weak Xie Qingjing to the side. He arrogantly asked him if he submitted. It was a stark contrast to his previous polite and civilized demeanor. Suddenly, a voice called out to 94 from behind. Su Huaibei had also appeared in Xie's residence. At that moment, he watched as 94, looking like a bandit, pushed Xie's family head to the ground. 94 immediately got up quickly. His whole body radiated innocence and cuteness. He earnestly explained that he only wanted Xie Cheng. His younger brother, Su Huaibei, affectionately pinched Jiu-si's face. He scolded him for being unruly. He should find a nanny to teach him some manners. Jiu-si retorted, I didn't do anything wrong. Then he told Su Huaibei what he saw at Xie's residence. Xie Qingjing shakily stood up at this moment. He never thought that he, a grown man, would be bullied like this by a girl. He had just stood up, when a sight before him shocked him. Were they so open about it? Su Huaibei turned his head. His cold gaze swept over Xie Qingjing, making him instantly tense. He gave Xie Qingjing a slight smile. His tone was flat. Young Master Xie, what kind of look was that? Xie Qingjing quickly waved his hands, indicating he saw nothing. Actually, I'm silently crying inside. When the prince smiles, someone is probably going to be unlucky, and that someone is me. Poor Xiao Xie, watching Jiu-si standing beside the prince. So this little girl is the one the prince loves. Good thing I didn't do anything wrong. I ask you, who could resist an adorable little thing running towards them? Jiu-si excitedly arrived at the regent's palace. Upon seeing Su Huaibei, she immediately threw herself into his arms. At this moment, the 5-kilowatt light bulb, Jingji, felt very much superfluous. Help! Can I log off? The conservative Su Huaibei was almost overwhelmed by Jiu-si's enthusiastic and unrestrained affection. He quickly pressed Jiu-si down onto a chair. Jiu-si remembered the purpose of her visit. Ask him immediately. Have you found any clues about the dismounting incident? Su Huaibei told him what he had learned. It turned out that a new craftsman from Jiangnan had recently arrived at the Xie family. This person is a heavy gambler. He sells things when he runs out of money. What he sells is a kind of medicinal powder called immortal powder, which he claims is an ancestral secret recipe. Saying this, he took out a small bottle. This is divine. The immortal umbrella only needs a little, to make one feel no pain. Light and airy, transcendent. Many clinics have bought it from him. The reputation is surprisingly good. Jiu-si looks at the immortal umbrella in Su Huaibei's hand. I've seen this thing in other dimensions before. It must never be spread. He said with a serious face. Your Highness, once this thing is misused, the 5 kingdoms will surely be doomed. Su Huaibei looked at the worried Jiu-si. Something no one has ever seen before. How could he know? Fairy spirits often descend to the mortal realm in plays. Could it be that he's truly not immortal? Chunlai was the same last time. He underwent an inexplicable change. He sighed silently. Whatever. If not investigating allows for longevity, then I'd rather remain ignorant my whole life. When he wants to say it, he will always tell himself. A few days later, Jiu-si and Bai Wanzi watched the carriage leaving for Huaibei from the railing. Bai Wanzi asked Jiu-si, you really aren't going? Jiu-si's face was full of reluctance. Do you think I don't want to? It's the matter of the immortal dispersal. The prince secretly submitted a memorial to the emperor. Now I'm ordered to investigate in the south of the Yangtze River. What if I go with him? What if something happens in the capital? I want to be his strong support. Suddenly, Bai Wanzi was startled. He pointed to the host in the distance and said, look, it's the maid we chased away earlier. How vain this woman is. To rise to the top. She would even ruin her reputation, forcing the 6th young master of the general's mansion to take responsibility for her. Faced with the Lu family's well-founded accusations, Meng Hulu VI had no way to defend himself. Completely defenseless. The onlookers grew increasingly indignant. 94, hidden in the crowd, was also suppressing his anger. Bai Wanzi quickly urged him to calm down. And Lin Ziqian seems to be coming over. 94 let out a cold laugh. This scum has come just in time. He pushed through the crowd. Sister Lu Fu, what are you saying? Isn't your heart set on the Lin family's cousin? When did it become you, 6th brother, giving it to the Lin family? The sachet embroidered by my cousin is still on her waist. Hearing this, Lin Xian quickly untied the sachet from his waist. Lu Fu began to play the emotional card pitifully. Miss, I grew up with you in this manner. I treat you as my own younger sister. How can you slander me and young Master Lin like this? Jiao Ci's face was frosty. You treated me like your own sister, and then framed our entire family. This is how you repay your master. You said that. Aren't you afraid of divine retribution? Unexpectedly, Jiao Ci actually knew about her betrayal. Yu Fu didn't know how to defend herself for a moment. Lin Ziqian also turned around and prepared to sneak away. Suddenly, a figure blocked his path. Where is young Master Lin going? Prince Jing raised the pouch he had just taken off. In such a hurry to destroy the evidence, he threw the pouch on the ground. On the night of March 13th, this prince, invited the 6th young master to drink. Didn't your master tell you? With Prince Jing's testimony, 6th brother's reputation is finally saved. Madam Lin walks into the Green Willow house. Back then, I bought you from the yamen. I saved you from falling into the dust. Now, you should go where you should have gone all along. Lu Fu collapses to the ground. His dreams of wealth and power were completely shattered. Seeing the truth revealed, the onlookers dispersed. Prince Jin turned to Lao Lu. Won't you invite me in? That night, Jiao Ci learned from Bai Wanzi that Lu Fu was dead. His expression was impassive. Leng Leng said, it seems the people I sent did their job well. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced his heart. Because he violated the rules of the reincarnation system, he killed someone. So, this is it? But he returned, determined to ensure that everyone who killed him in his past life would meet a terrible end. Jiao Ci clutched his chest and stood up. He searched on the dressing table. He took out an envelope. I want to see him. He was originally a highly valued maid in the general's mansion. Because of colluding with outsiders and betraying her master, she was reborn. Mu Jusi, having returned, left the mansion. Now she has surprisingly appeared on the street. He pulled Lin Ziqian's sleeve. She asked him to take her in. Lingzi is known for being ungrateful, especially to a maid who is no longer of any use to him. He waved his hand dismissively, shaking off Lu Fu's clinging. Then without hesitation, he turned and left. Jusi watched all this from a distance, secretly sighing that they were truly a match made in heaven. Equally disgusting. If it weren't for the reincarnation system's restriction against him personally killing, this person wouldn't exist in this world anymore. After a moment's thought, he looked up again, and found the green amulet was gone. He had been brought to the Prince Duan's mansion. Prince Duan lifted the green amulet's chin. You're quite captivating. How did your master chase you out? Lu Fu, ever the opportunist, immediately put on a pitiful act. He had a plan in mind. If he could attach himself to a nobleman like the prince, he could at least secure a lifetime of wealth and luxury. But Prince Duan angrily turned his face away, abandoning his master for personal gain. Driven out by the Lin family. Who are you putting on this act for? I'm not some favored pet like Lin Ziqian. His face was full of insidiousness. Since you desire wealth and honor, then I shall give you a chance to return and be your own master. The next day, the fan, still in their sleep, was awakened by Bai Wanzi. Bai Wanzi anxiously told me that the maid, the one in green, has arrived, and is crying at the gate right now. She says that you and your 6th brother have, and demands that you take responsibility. Jiao Ci was instantly wide awake. He sat up in bed. What nonsense is this? Bai Wanzi immediately fled the holographic projection. Above was the green-clad figure confronting his 6th older brother. Good heavens. He actually dared to come looking for trouble. I absolutely must have a good talk with him. At the shogunate's gate, the green-clad figure looked wronged, saying he had lost his innocence. I have nowhere else to go. 6th young master doesn't intend to acknowledge me. Does he? 6th looked bewildered. I don't know when I ever had any connection with you. Lu Fu immediately said. On March 13th, young Master Lin and Miss Shen married. Then 6th young master fell for Miss Shen, and he shouldn't be drinking at the tavern. The TV news reported on the crisis I faced. What it said was well-reasoned and well-supported. It attracted the onlookers' heated discussion. Everyone said the Mu family was bullying people too much. How could a girl use her reputation to deceive others? I didn't expect the Mu family to be such bullies. As the saying goes, many voices make a storm. Faced with this negative public opinion, how should Jiao Ci deal with this? The consequence of having a husband who's too attractive is that other women are always eyeing him, even when he just goes out. Night falls. Su Huaibei is still handling official business. Suddenly, a sound comes from outside the door. The guards immediately become alert. He puts his hand on the hilt of his sword, always ready to act. From the slightly opened door, a head popped out, with big, round eyes, secretly peeking into the room to see who had arrived. It was Mu Jiaoxi, the person Su Huaibei had been longing for day and night. Her arrival left Su Huaibei speechless in surprise. He immediately stood up. Jiaoxi awkwardly explained. I rushed here day and night from the capital, But secretly, I was breaking out in a cold sweat, thousands of miles away, and arriving in an instant. Who would believe that? Suibi isn't a fool. And Suibi, whom I've always cared for, didn't even ask how I got here. He embraced Josie. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? Josie's face was full of guilt. He hadn't expected Su Huaibei to believe his flimsy excuse. Su Huaibei rarely showed such genuine emotion. Since I sent that peach blossom, I've been wondering day and night about your reaction, but I never received a reply. Josie looked up. The mark on his forehead, caused by violating system regulations, and the backlash against his body, has faded. His eyes were full of affection. I'm wrong. Next time, I'll write you a letter every day, until you're sick of seeing them. He nestled into Su Huaibei's arms. Only in his arms can she feel at ease. An hour later, Su Huaibei was still handling official business, while Josie was already fast asleep on the table. He looked at the sleeping girl beside him, a smile on his lips. This girl had just been clamoring to help him with his work. He fell asleep so soundly in no time. Su Huaibei gently picked up Josie. He settled him in bed. Then he quietly left. Bai Wanzi secretly marveled that such a ridiculous lie could be believed. Love really does make people blind. In the morning, the maid Axie found Josie's room empty. She saw a letter left behind by Josie. The letter frankly stated that he was going to Jiangnan. He asked everyone not to worry. Axie burst into tears again. How could she not worry? Thousands of miles away, on the bustling streets of Jiangnan, Su Huaibei instructed the wine steward. He remained in place. He went to buy some pastries. The butler, still eating his candied haws, was suddenly stopped. The person was a pretty young woman. Bai Wanzi secretly reminded the host, this girl has been circling you two for 2 days. She doesn't look like a good person. The woman had a gossipy look on her face. Miss, what is your relationship with that young master? This question had been lingering in her heart, because this girl's clothes and appearance suggested she was unmarried, yet she dined with that young master every day. Josie immediately guessed the woman's thoughts, but to avoid revealing her identity, she smiled and said, we all trust each other. The woman instantly relaxed. So they're siblings. Josie rushed toward Su Huaibei, grabbing his arm, and urging him to go back quickly. After all, there's someone else there who has her eyes on her man. But a woman blocked their path. Her face held a shy, scheming look. May I ask your name, sir? How bold this woman is. Upon seeing the man she fancies, she not only secretly followed him for 2 days, but also took the initiative to greet him. Even going so far as to take Su Huaibei's 9-string pillow and leave. I am but an insignificant person. Don't worry about me, miss. But the woman was persistent. She chased after him and blocked his path. How about I treat you both to dinner? Su Huaibei didn't respond. He just felt that this woman was being too clingy. Josie politely but firmly refused, saying that her brother would cook for her. Chen Yingrong immediately got angry, scolding Josie for letting a scholar cook. Before Josie could speak, Su Huaibei said coldly, why can't a scholar cook? Who says women must cook, and men should just sit back and enjoy it? My family background doesn't shy away from Miss Chen's disapproval. Saying this, he pulled Josie up and prepared to leave. What a sudden voice. A man in plain clothes appeared and bowed to Su Huaibei. He was deeply impressed by his words. Chen Yingrong, whose speech had just been interrupted, recognized the newcomer and was furious. Cheng Ziren, it's none of your business. Cheng Ziren was not to be outdone. Is this your territory, too? Josie watched silently from the side, saying such inflammatory words. Who is this person? Never mind. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. He decided to add fuel to the fire. Miss Chen, this young master is not my brother, he said, putting his arm around Su Huaibei. He's my childhood betrothed. At these words, Chen Yingrong nearly jumped out of her skin. They all left together. Chen Ziruan, a little girl who loved to watch the fun. You're done for. That Chen Yingrong is the daughter of the headmaster of the renowned Qingshan Academy in this town. You've offended her. There's no good life to be had in this place. The words were barely out, when he was suddenly seized by a violent coughing fit. He doesn't seem to be in good health. Josie looked at the frail man before him. And you? You're so poor, and yet you dare to oppose Chen Yingrong? Cheng Ziren looked fearless. I am a student of Qingshan Academy. I have been the top student for over a year, and more. Old man Chen would be thrilled to have me. How could they possibly touch me? The two people who had just met began chatting away incessantly. Su Huaibei, left out in the cold, felt a little sour. His face fell. He pulled Josie over. Josie playfully poked his dark face. Cheng Ziren couldn't help but burst out laughing. Even the couple who were just flirting a moment ago, united against him, saying in unison, what are you laughing at? It really startled Cheng Ziren. Cheng Ziren scratched his head. I wasn't wrong. You two are so bold. Josie put her hands on her hips, looking like a complete hooligan. Eating your family's rice? Suddenly, Baiwanzi popped out, reminding the host. This person has the scent of the immortal umbrella on him. He's the foremost student of Qingshan Academy, yet he carries the scent of the immortal umbrella. Fortunately, the scent isn't strong. He should be only slightly involved, or perhaps it's from elsewhere. After much thought, after a moment's reflection, but I felt even more apprehensive. The only place Cheng could naturally access was the academy. The academy houses a large number of people. If the younger generation were destroyed by the divine powder, the regret would be unimaginable. He turned and suggested going to Huaibei. We can investigate the academy there. After all, the academy students. If anyone is contaminated by the immortal umbrella, it will harm a lot of people. Su Huaibei then agreed. Pushing open the door, Josie only then discovered that he had unknowingly been led to a kitchen. He felt a little awkward. He had only casually mentioned it, and Su Huaibei was actually cooking for him. I can't believe he's actually going to cook. Su Huaibei rolled up his sleeves, looking confident. The young miss gave the order. How could I refuse? A quarter of an hour passed, and Beibai was still frozen in front of the cutting board. The man who usually plans everything was stumped by this small kitchen. Josie had already guessed. After all, he's a prince. Sure enough, he can't cook. But then Beibai started working. With a flurry of actions and constant flipping, the food gradually revealed its delicious color. He let out a breath. Finally, we've settled the argument. This is far more tiring than leading troops into battle myself. The two of them looked at the objects before them. Their dark surfaces emitted a strange odor. Okay, stinky treasure. I take back what I just said. Kind Josie comforted. Everyone has their own unique talents. There's no such thing as perfect. Let's go out to eat. Yes, that restaurant next to Xiren Academy. We can also gather some information there. His words had barely left his mouth when Su Huaibei appeared, crouching on the wall. He grasped Josie's hand. You really like Chengdu. Josie looked at the man who clearly had eaten a lemon. So his silence just now was because he was jealous. His face flushed slightly. How could I possibly be interested in him? The sight of them whispering sweet nothings in the kitchen, standing at the doorway, he silently slipped away. I'm not worthy of him. Woof woof, night. The Chancellor's study is brightly lit. The Chancellor just learned from Lord Lingyu that the tavern is not in the capital. Lord Lingyu said he has instructed Lin Ziqian to investigate Josie's whereabouts. Then he mentioned asking the Chancellor to help Lin Ziqian enter the court. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Sheniying. The matter is settled. Naturally, my lord will reward you handsomely. You may leave now. Lin Yushan left meekly. But his face changed the moment he turned around. That bitch. She doesn't take me seriously, relying on her looks. If I gain power, I'll make her grovel at my feet. After Lin Yushan left, Shen Yinyin guessed that Mu Jusi had followed Shi Huaibei to Jiangnan, asking the Chancellor whether to take the opportunity to eliminate him. The Chancellor's face was full of ruthlessness. Little Mandarin Duck likes this so much. Staying together, dying together is good. At this time, in Qingshan Academy, Peng Xiren took out a delicate bottle. He and Chen Yingrong didn't get along during the day. That night, old man Chen gave him this. Xiren, this is something that will let you sleep soundly. The dean knows you'll be taking the imperial examination this year. This is for you. Don't let me down. He opened the bottle. Is it really that good? What if your significant other is a jealous person? Because Jiu Si spoke a few extra words with a scholar. The regent king is overcome with jealousy. He feigns helplessness. He asks himself where he falls short of Cheng Ziruan. Unwittingly, Cheng Ziruan, the unlucky child deemed the regent king's #1 rival in love, is currently staring blankly at a glass bottle. He had offended the dean's daughter during the day, and that evening, Dean Chen sent him this gift. He didn't believe that old man Chen would be so kind as to give him something good. The next day, many students from the academy walked to school together. Cheng Xiren, among the crowd, inexplicably felt a sense of unease. It felt like someone was always watching him. Suddenly, a hand landed on his shoulder. He was so scared that cold sweat instantly broke out. He looked back. Jiu Si smiled and waved at him. Su Huaibei, with a cold expression, stood beside him. The three of them looked at each other in pairs. Silence fell between them. Cheng Ziran looked at Jiu Si, waiting for him to speak first. However, Su Huaibei took Cheng Ziran's gaze as a provocation, and put his arm around Jiu Si, asserting his claim. Cheng Ziruan smiled wryly, asking them how they ended up here. But inwardly, he silently complained. Aren't they going to show off their affection again? Jiu Si grinned mischievously. Young Master Cheng, I heard your wedding is approaching. Inside the tea house, Chen Ziruan devoured the delicious food on the table. Mumbling, he asked Jusi what he had just said. Good things are coming soon. Jusi stroked his chin. The streets are all saying you're engaged to Chen Yingrong, that you've become the Chen family's son-in-law, and that you've received betrothal gifts. That you secretly met with her in the academy in the dead of night. At these words, Chen Ziren threw the chicken leg from his hand. He didn't bother to swallow his food, loudly defending himself. Even if I remain single all my life, I would never want to have anything to do with Chen Yinglong. Even if I'm a single dog. I'm a single dog with taste. He pulled out from his bosom the bottle that old Chen had given him. Isn't this the very thing old Chen gave him? How did it become a love token? An ordinary bottle in his eyes. But to Jiu-Si, it's as terrifying as a devil. This is the magical umbrella Su Huaibei tracked down in his journey south. Su Huaibei looked serious, taking the bottle from Cheng Ziren's hand. Do you know what this is? Cheng Ziren looked puzzled. It seems he really doesn't know the inside story. Jiu-Si explained from the side. This thing is called immortal powder. One puff and you'll boast like an immortal, making you forget your worries from then on. However, it's addictive. When the drug addiction attacks, it will consume one's heart. It makes me want to rip my heart out. Su Huaibei holds a bottle. Your dean has quite the methods. But his heart is cruel. He actually thought of controlling the acupoints with drugs. He looks at Cheng Ziren. I need an informant. Are you willing? Who would have thought? The respected and highly esteemed academy dean is secretly an addict. On the deserted street, heavy breathing sounds came from the darkness. A staggering figure appeared. Dean Chen Chongwen, taking unsteady steps, congratulated that person. A few days ago, he suddenly lost all his symptoms. It's been so hard for me. Finally, I can get the magical umbrella today. He knocked and rang the doorbell at the same time. With such a good thing, even Cheng Ziren, that vicious dog, will have to obey. Suddenly, the sound of galloping horses came from behind. Chen Chongwen quickly turned his head to look. What's going on? A group of people appeared behind me. Su Huaibei was at the front. Dean Chen, thank you for leading the way. He approached Chen Chongwen. Qingshan Academy is the largest academy in the south of the Yangtze River. It produces many outstanding talents. As the dean, why would he commit such an evil act? Chen Chongwen still doesn't know disaster is about to strike. He refuses to admit he's done anything wrong. He even invited Su Huaibei to try out this wonderful, divine umbrella. Seeing his outrageous words, Jing Ji feared he might do something extreme, so she quietly signaled her subordinates to approach. Dean Chen probably used the divine umbrella himself. Number 94 suddenly spoke. Chen Chongwen saw that the speaker was actually a girl. A girl, the chairperson? As soon as she finished speaking, his drug cravings began to act up. His throat felt as if it were clamped shut, unable to speak. His hands and feet began to tremble uncontrollably. He covered his throat. His imposing demeanor made onlookers believe he was a god. Who would have thought that the headmaster, who escaped the bustling academy, would fall so low? His downfall was so pathetic. It left everyone present sighing. Ignoring Chen Chongwen's desperate pleas, he turned away without mercy. Now you look like a wild beast. Do you still think the immortal dispersion is a good thing? The dean has fallen. Qingshan Academy is also under control. At night, Jiu-Si pretends to read. But he can't focus at all. He just feels incredibly bored. Su Huaibei is busy interrogating the captured criminals. They're not allowed to enter or leave the academy either. I stay in the same place every day. Even Bai Wanzi finds it incredibly boring. Suddenly, his radar went off again. Host. Someone is approaching. And it's Shen Yinin, an old acquaintance of Jiu-Si. Jiu-Si, on the other hand, looked excited. Just in time. I'm terribly bored. Other women would be panicked and distraught when encountering an assassin, completely flustered. But she looked excited, even praising the assassin for coming at just the right time. At night, Jiu-Si's door was gently pushed open by a pair of hands. Shen Yingying appeared silently. He was dressed in a black night suit. His face was also covered with gauze. One look at his attire revealed that he meant no good. Upon entering, he abruptly found Jiu-Si standing alone by the window. He was seen to dart forward, delivering a blow with the edge of his hand. Jiu-Si immediately fainted and fell to the ground. Just as Shen Yingying was about to hoist Jiu-Si onto her shoulder and run away, someone suddenly appeared at the door. It was Jing Ji, who had rushed over after hearing the commotion. Shen Yingying, slight of build, quickly jumped out the window. Jing Ji was about to give chase, but then saw Jiu-Si, who had been unconscious, suddenly raise his head and give Jing Ji a thumbs-up gesture. Could Miss Mu have been faking unconsciousness? She looked towards where Jiu-Si was pointing. A small piece of paper lay on the ground. She opened it to look. It said, "Red beans lead the way." The unconscious Jiu-Si was carried through the dense forest by Shen Yinin. She leaned heavily on Shen Yinin's shoulder, clearly uncomfortable, but she still persistently scattered the red beans to guide the way. Suddenly, Shen Yinin roughly threw Jiu-Si to the ground. His voice was cold. "Open your eyes once you wake up. I didn't expect to be discovered. I'm not pretending anymore." Jiu-Si stroked her head and slowly sat up. She quietly had the white ball locate their current position. Fortunately, their current location is only 20 li from Su Huaibei. I believe he should be here soon. Shen Yingying watched Jiu Si, who was unhurried. He gave a cold smile. You're surprisingly calm. Jiu Si brushed the sand off himself. And you? Not at home, secretly whispering sweet nothings with Lin Ziqian? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Being forced to marry Lin Ziqian was always a last resort. That's also Shen Yingying's sore point. As expected, she was instantly enraged. Shen Yingying swiftly drew a long sword. Jiu Si remained calm and composed. Shen Yingying raised her sword, ready to strike Jiu Si. But he suddenly spoke, has no one ever told you? The sword stopped abruptly. Shen Yingying wanted to hear what last words the dying Jiu Si had to offer. About doing things. The worst thing is to underestimate your opponent. Jiu Si spoke and quickly moved behind Shen Yingying. At this moment, Shen Yingying's full attention was on the swiftly moving Jiu Si. When she reacted, her long sword had already been taken by Jiu Si. Jiu Si placed the long sword at Shen Yingying's throat. I'll give you a chance to reveal your master. Will he reveal the mastermind behind this? This woman is simply a total mess in the assassin world. Her kidnapping attempt failed, and she had her sword taken. Jiu Si placed the sword at Shen Yinin's throat, and questioned her about the mastermind. Shen Yinin hesitated only for a moment. Suddenly, she curled her lips, with a determined look. Don't even think about it. Having said that, he charged straight at the sword. With a poochie sound, blood splattered everywhere. This action was completely unexpected by Jiu Si. Before he could react, Shen Yinin had already fallen to the ground. Bai Wanzi was extremely anxious. Host, you idiot. Newbies who kill will suffer backlash. It's done now. Jiu's has no other way to remedy this. He suppressed his shock. He slowly wiped the blood from his fingers with a handkerchief. I didn't intend to kill him so soon, but he delivered himself to me. What can I do? But those who killed my family, I won't let a single one of them go. Then he glanced at Bai Wanzi. And, don't think I didn't hear you. You took the opportunity to insult me. Wanzi immediately cowered. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced my heart. The mark on my forehead also appeared. This backlash came faster and more violently. Jiu Si was in such agony that cold sweat poured down. At that moment, a voice called out to him. It was Su Huaibei who had arrived. He saw Jiu Si, who was disheveled and in a sorry state. He quickly approached. He paid no attention to the corpse lying behind him. Jiu Si secretly pondered how to explain it to him. Su Huaibei took Jiu Si's hand. He helped him wipe away the blood. Why did he do it himself? Jiu Si was quite puzzled. Why didn't Su Huaibei ask anything? But after everything that's happened, Jiu Si doesn't want to keep it from him anymore. He gently leaned against Su Huaibei's chest. Su Huaibei, I have something to tell you. The mark on his forehead slowly faded. He was utterly exhausted. Jiu Si closed his eyes. I'll rest for a while. Wait until everything settles down. I'll tell you everything then. In the inn, Jiu Si slowly opened her eyes. She saw Su Huaibei sitting at the head of the bed. He was holding a bowl of soup. His face was full of tenderness. Finally awake. Eat something first. Jiu Si suddenly spoke. Su Huaibei, do you believe in ghosts? Although the question was abrupt, Su Huaibei still shook his head. He then asked, what about mountain spirits and goblins? Compared to supernatural forces, I believe more in human effort. Jiu Si continued to ask cautiously, if I were to say, if I had unknown hardships and secrets, would you believe me? Before he finished speaking, Su Huaibei directly blocked his words. This is the first kiss for the young couple. Scattering flowers. Scattering flowers. However, will Su Huaibei be able to accept Jiu Si's true identity? True love is probably about willing to love you, no matter if you are human, a demon, a god, or a ghost, protecting you in my heart, always. Jiu Si decides to confess her identity to Su Huaibei. Before she could reveal the truth, Su Huaibei had already kissed her. As they embraced, Su Huaibei grabbed Jiu Si's hand, placing it over his chest. His eyes were full of deep affection. Honestly, I still have many questions. I always feel like there's a blank space in my memory. But because I believe in you, I can wait. Wait until one day you tell me yourself. But, he touched the delicate corner of her lips, and kissed her again. Some things, he really couldn't wait a single moment. Su Huaibei left the room. After closing the door, he immediately summoned Jingji. He brought Jingji over. He instructed her to put away everything in the manner related to Buddhism. Even the Guanyin statues were to be removed. Jingji secretly looked at her master. What was the reason behind this sudden action? Su Huaibei's expression was firm. Even if it's a monster I've decided to spend my life with. There's no reason to let it go. Alright, stinky treasure. I can only say that Beibei seems to understand but doesn't fully understand. This incident teaches us that we shouldn't listen to only half of a story. A simply furnished donkey cart appeared at the city gate of Wuxi. It passed through the city gate. Shops lined both sides of the street. The crowds bustled. It was incredibly lively. The innkeeper, who always loved a lively atmosphere, lifted the curtain. He was excited by the bustling street scene before him. I must explore, eat, and shop. Su Huaibei had just entered the Wuxi city limits, when his expression turned serious. He later received news that the imperial envoy in Wuxi, Su Jinyan, had disappeared. Something happening at this critical juncture. Chen Chongwen and the Wuxi prefect might be working for the same person. It seems another trip where he can't relax. He rubbed Jussi's head, finally finishing this wave of work. I'll definitely take you around enough. Two idle hooligans were sitting by the street. As the car passed by, it caught their attention. The ringleader caught sight of Jussi leaning out of the car window. His eyes immediately widened. In the car, Jinji was still reporting the situation to Su Huaibei. According to the scouts, there's constant traffic around Su Jinyan's residence. But despite his disappearance for several days, no one has reported it. His servants have also vanished without a trace. Furthermore, his courtyard is temporarily rented. Tracing him will likely be difficult. Jiu-Si asks Bai Wanzi if she can locate Su Jinyan. Since his birth, Bai Wanzi's power has been significantly weakened. Therefore, even with all my strength, I can only locate the person. On the success side, Jiu-Si muttered to himself, the area you've circled is really huge, huh? Suddenly, the cart driver pulled hard on the reins, bringing the cart to a stop. The cart jolted violently, almost causing Jiu-Si to lose their balance. They fell into Su Huaibiao's arms. What on earth happened outside the cart? Three people were discussing matters in the carriage. Suddenly, the carriage stopped. It almost threw Jiu-Si to the ground. Several small-time thugs were seen swaggering outside, blocking their way. The leader of the thugs pushed the carriage driver. He reached out to lift the curtain. Whose young lady is inside? She is so beautiful. My master will surely like you. He said this, then lecherously lifted the curtain. But what greeted him was a large foot. Unprepared, the gang leader went poof, kicked away. He fell to the ground, still yelling something about who dared to injure him. My master will never let you go. Su Huaibei lifted the curtain. Who is your master? His face was grim. I want to see if he has the life to enjoy it. The governor's mansion. A servant rushed in. Master, it's not good. No good. Zhuda, the one who helped you find the beauty, has been arrested. He was looking for you at the front gate. Still intoxicated by the beauty's fragrance, Governor Wang slammed his hand on the table. Who is this Wu Shicheng? How dare he disrespect me? Go to the front gate. His ample belly swaying, he was led by a servant to a room at the front gate. These years of pampered ease have gotten to me. I'm quite out of breath after walking just a few steps. Before he could speak, a voice rang out from inside. Lord Wang, perhaps you'd like to see who this prince is. The moment Magistrate Wang saw Su Huaibei, he instantly broke out in a cold sweat. My legs are weak. Su Huaibei, a scoundrel abandoned to the streets. This man is openly seizing a woman. He claims to have the people's approval. I, the prince, wish to see if this is true. Prefect Wang fell to his knees with a thud. He still tries to argue. Your Highness, please investigate this matter fairly. I absolutely did not instruct Zhuda to do such unspeakable things. But inwardly, I was shocked. The secret letter said that the King Xiaoyao and his party were about to enter the city. But the city guards reported nothing. How could he suddenly appear? I was afraid Zhuda would expose me. So I immediately ordered my servants to drag this babbling commoner away. In the vast Wuxi city, to rely on a gang of thugs to maintain order? What kind of logic is that? Jiu-Si suddenly appears. Another one. A fearless one. Wang Taisho impatiently turns his head. The moment he sees Jiu-Si, everyone is shocked. Jiu-Si's hand reaches out. Lord Wang, you must explain this to us properly. There are countless beautiful women in the world, but the prince loves only her. The magistrate is still trying to argue that he has nothing to do with the thugs who forcibly abducted the woman in the street. Jiu-Si suddenly appeared on the scene. The lecherous magistrate's eyes went wide. His face flushed. He asked the girl's name. The words had just left his mouth. A sword flashed out of its sheath. Su Huaibei, burning with rage, placed the sword at the thug's throat. Say another word, and I'll make you share his fate. Prefect Wang quickly bowed and apologized, thinking to himself, this Lord Xiaoyao treats the girl by his side with such care. He seems to be a tender-hearted man. Thinking of this, he immediately requested to hold a welcoming banquet for Su Huaibei. To attract Su Huaibei, he continued to introduce that a pair of Western region dancing girls had newly arrived in the East City. Their charm is truly indescribable. Jiu-Si pondered secretly. Isn't the East City where Bai Wanzi hinted the imperial envoy was located? Su Huaibei frowned. With female relatives present. So, I haven't finished speaking. Jiu-Si immediately interjected, since we're arranging a banquet, we should invite some song and dance performers. Otherwise, it'll be too dry and uninteresting. The masked dancers from the Qingdong Song and Dance House. Yao Ji Shua. The dance was quite graceful. Su Huaibei wasn't interested in song and dance to begin with. He was quite enthusiastic at this moment. It was Jiusi, on the other hand, who was watching with great interest. He glanced at Jiusi, who was watching intently. You really do want to watch the dancing, huh? Jiusi immediately explained that he was arrested for solving a case. Lord Su is in the east of the city, but see Su Huaibei quietly approaching. He whispered in his ear. Compared to them, I'd rather see you dance yourself. The two looked at each other deeply. So close they could hear each other's heartbeats. Suddenly, a loud bang came from outside. It broke the pleasant atmosphere. Thunder cracked in the sky. Torrential rain poured down with the thunder. Governor Wang flattered the prince, saying, "The rain is too heavy. Why don't we stay at the guest house for tonight? We can return to the manor after the rain stops." Jiusi and Su Huaibei exchanged a smile. They had already felt that this Wang Taishui was acting strangely. Since he sent himself to their door, they would make good use of him. Bai Wanzi outside the room quietly signaled that there were people inside. But there was no hostility. This Wang Chang, by giving his sister to the Prince Duan as a concubine, became this Taishui. It seems you're going to send another woman to your prince's chambers. Jiusi's face tightened. He really doesn't take me, the legitimate wife, seriously. He directly pushed open the door. The door opened, and a woman was seen kneeling down with a thud. Her expression was serious. Without the slightest gentleness, the little queen came at my father's behest. But please, your highness, forgive me. Wang Mi harbors no designs on your highness. Having said that, she looked up, only to find that it wasn't just Su Huai and Bai Yi in the room. He secretly speculated that she returned to the room late at night with the prince. This young lady fell for a jealous man, and the consequence is that praising another girl in front of him will trigger a lot of jealousy. Wang Mi, the girl sent to Su Huaibei's room by her father, clearly stated that she had no designs on him. Jiusi secretly admired Wang Mi, thinking she was a talent at assessing the situation. Wang Mi revealed everything he knew. It turned out that Wang Chang, through his connections in the capital, frequently interacted with Qing Shan Academy, and he also owned a house in the east of the city. Jiusi clasped her hands. If what you say is true, your father is likely in grave danger, but if you wholeheartedly pledge your allegiance to the prince, it will surely save your life. Wang Mi lowered his head and said softly, I obey the prince's orders. The candles in the room quickly went out. The guards outside thought their evil plan had succeeded, and hurriedly prepared to report the good news to Wang Chang. Little did they know that Su Huaibei and Jiusi had already slipped out through the back window. Jiusi sighed all the way, what a pity for Miss Wang. Such bearing, yet born into such a family. Su Huaibei embraced Jiusi. His tone was full of jealousy. The woman sent to my room. Why are you so magnanimous? Jiusi found it amusing. The esteemed King Xiaoyao, actually getting jealous of a woman. To appease this jealous king, he tiptoed, and lightly kissed Su Huaibei. Immediately, he looked shy, and prepared to run away, but Su Huaibei grabbed him. It's only fair to reciprocate. I can't let you be at a disadvantage. After saying that, he kissed Jiusi deeply. Midnight, Jiusi and his group arrived outside the house east of Wangchang City in the rain. Jingji was slightly worried about this trip. After all, we have limited manpower. Rushing here in the middle of the night seems a bit rash, but Jiusi was full of confidence. Speed is key in war. Besides, Wang Chang wouldn't bring a large group of men here to attract attention. He wouldn't bring a large contingent of men here. Before Su Huaibei could stop him, he had already entered the room. In a short while, several burly men, their faces bruised and swollen, were thrown out. They watched intently, their eyes wide, regarding his partner's innate superhuman strength. Su Huaibei could only remain silent, offering no explanation. Several people entered the room, and immediately spotted a middle-aged man bound hand and foot. This person was the missing imperial envoy, Su Jinyan. Jingji quickly stepped forward and untied the ropes binding him. He then went to Huaibei to ask why he had been imprisoned here. Su Jinyan informed me that Wuxi has had continuous rain recently. Disaster reports are coming in from everywhere. But one village is different. The losses are minimal. I investigated this place myself. That's why Wang Chang knocked me out, and held me captive. Su Huaibei looked serious. Which village is it? Shanghe village. What's so strange about this Shanghe village? It was originally a romantic scene of a beautiful moonlit night. Why was it ruined by the ever-so-subtle Bai Wanzi? In the sharp rain of the night, a carriage was stopped at the entrance of Shanghe village. The tightly disguised driver explained that he had run out of money and came to ask for lodging. The driver in the carriage was very uneasy. Such questioning at this late hour. Just an ordinary carriage. A small village, guarded more heavily than Wuxi City. Su Huaibei just needs to ensure he can enter the village safely. This village is strange. Our identities can't be hidden. Bai Tuanzi quietly perched on Jiao Ci's shoulder. So you just came to the city? Is everything really alright? Jiao Ci thought to himself. The governor, Hu Li, has been killed, and the condemned official, Su Jinyan, has also been rescued. It should be fine for a few days. In the inn, Su Huaibei sat alone by the window, looking out. He seems to be pondering something. Jiao Ci appears, hands behind his back. He asks what Su Huaibei is looking at. Su Huaibei is slightly surprised by Jiao Ci's arrival. What? Not sleeping? Jiao Ci's face flushes slightly. Hey! The rain outside had stopped long ago. Now, soft moonlight bathed the land. Vast expanses of silvery white brought a deep sense of peace. Jiao Ci propped her chin up in her hand. Suddenly, she felt this place was quite nice. We could come here to retire someday. An offhand remark. Yet it struck Su Huaibei's heart. So my future is part of his. But judging from what he knows of Jiao Ci's personality, he should actually prefer the vast desert scenery. Jiao Ci nestled in his arms. It seems the desert likes him too. How about we switch between the two places in the future? Go. Huaibei looked at him with a doting expression. All good. I have houses in all these places. I can live anywhere. He looked at Jiao Ci with affection. Mine is yours. Bai Wanzi, standing to the side, turned into a lemon, emitting a sour aura. Is this how the rich show off their wealth and flaunt their love? Their feelings reaching a peak, Huaibei leaned down, about to kiss Jiao Ci's lips. Suddenly, Bai Wanzi shyly popped out. Oh my god. So many snakes. Only then did the two realize that at some point, many snakes had appeared in the room. It's said that time flies when one is having fun. One of the snakes lunged at 94 with its mouth wide open. Why were there so many snakes in the room? And could 94 escape from the snake's jaws? Everyone's dogs were happily eating their food, but a group of uninvited guests ruined it. Su Huaibei shielded 94 behind him. With a swift swing, he cut the snake in front of him in two. It's hopeless, the number of snakes keeps increasing. It's obvious someone is doing this on purpose. We can't keep cutting them down like this. Jiao's, in a moment of anxiety, accidentally knocked over the candlestick on the table. The snakes immediately retreated upon encountering the fire. This gave Jiao's an opening. Snakes fear fire. Su Huaibei swiftly struck down with his knife, knocking over all the candlesticks on the table. A raging fire erupted in the room, and the snakes scattered, no longer attacking. In an instant, the fire spread throughout the inn, attracting the attention of the surrounding crowd. Two people in the crowd concluded that Su Huaibei and his group had perished in the fire, believing their scheme had succeeded. Little did they know that Su Huaibei and his companions had already escaped the inn. They now appeared before them unscathed. The two were shocked and dismayed. How are you here? This question directly exposed them as the ones who set the trap. Su Huaibei's expression was serious. Shouldn't we be there? At this moment, an old man appeared, leaning on a cane. What is this? He saw Su Huaibei and his eyes lit up suddenly. He clasped his hands and knelt down. Your Excellency, are you the prince? Jiao Ci was startled. The village head of this remote mountain village could actually recognize a member of the imperial family at a glance. Do you know what crime it is to murder imperial relatives? The elder immediately explained that these people were all clean-living villagers. There have been recent floods, and villains are roaming everywhere. They were only acting out of fear and had no choice. This is clearly a flimsy excuse. But Jiao Ci didn't investigate further. Forget it, let's find us a new place to stay first. They can't leave us to sleep in the open air. The group was assigned to a new inn. The officer closed the door, then asked the prince why he wasn't pursuing the matter. Su Huaibei stood with his hands clasped. Now that their identities are revealed, they won't resort to such foolishly self-exposing tactics again. Their secret battle with Wang Chang has only just begun. I should focus my energy on more important things. Then Jiao Ci noticed that there was only one bed in the room. His eyes sparkled. He started fantasizing. Only one bed. Wouldn't that mean we could share a bed? Suddenly, he turned his head. He found Su Huaibei looking at him. He came over and embraced Jiao Ci. You've been through so much today. Get some rest. Sleep now. We can talk about anything else tomorrow. The 1200-watt, firm, light bulb, long accustomed to this display of affection, silently glowed. It's fine. Just pretend I'm not here. The next day, the old man came to Su Huaibei's residence. The conditions in the village are quite simple, Your Highness. Are you settling in all right? What are your plans for today? Su Huaibei informed the elder that this village suffered the least damage from the flood. I shall take a look around. The elder immediately nodded in agreement, listening attentively to the prince and princess's instructions. I'll personally show you around, Your Highness. Jiao Ci quickly waved her hands. I'm not the princess. I'm just a servant girl. Village head, please don't flatter me. This is quite unexpected for someone going to Huaibei. This girl, who always acts like she's the master's wife, actually claims to be a servant girl. His Highness is in a bad mood. How do we appease him? Waiting online, urgent. The village head of Shangha village brought Su Huaibei and Jusi to inspect the village. The rice in the fields was seen to be lying haphazardly. It didn't look like it had been carefully tended by farmers. The village head calmly explained that farming doesn't make money these days. Everyone is making tools. Therefore, besides this sparse rice, the only crops in the village are the corn planted on the back mountain. I heard the panic hidden in the village head's tone. Josie pretended not to know. Smiling, she said she hadn't seen any mountain. She wanted to go and have a look. The village head smiled even more strangely. Naturally, miss, you can go and see, but there are many plants on the mountain. The prince and miss should both be delighted. Having said that, he turned to the people behind him and instructed, "No air. The prince is going up the mountain. You come and clear the way." A man carrying a sickle stepped out from the crowd. Dao, with his wild eyes and unkempt hair, looked more like a bandit. The village head and No Air walked ahead. Su Huaibei and Jiu Si followed behind, whispering to each other about the rice paddy they had just seen. No living dead. Even the heavy ones are haphazardly planted. It looks like they were planted temporarily for show. Jiu Si looked enlightened. He said only corn was planted on this mountain. Do you believe him? The group walked on. Suddenly, No Air in front stopped. This is the place. Jiu Si looked towards the back of the cornfield. She poked her head out and asked if there was anything else behind it. The village chief immediately came out to stop her, saying that it's better not to go there. It's the village graveyard. Young lady, you're too young. You can't handle it. You should go down the mountain. Seeing the village chief's intense reaction, Jiu Si became even more certain. There are definitely cats behind the mountain. He didn't expose him publicly. Instead, he conveniently said he was a little hungry and could go down the mountain to find something to eat. Jiu Si and Su Huaibei went down the mountain, had dinner, and then lied that they were going back to rest. In fact, they secretly came to the outside of the village. They saw several young people gathered at the foot of the mountain. From their conversation, I learned that they were waiting for No Air. Their sneaky appearance clearly showed they were up to no good. Jiu Si and Su Huaibei secretly hid behind a nearby rock. As they expected, there was something on the back hill, but the village had arrived. I wonder how the investigation of the tight-lipped news is going. While they're waiting, Jiu Si seemed to remember something, and asked why he was unhappy earlier. Su Huaibei didn't speak, his eyes shifty. Turning his head away, Jiu Si forcefully turned his head back. Don't tell me you weren't. I can see it. It's just that when the village chief said I was the princess consort, why weren't you happy? What exactly happened? The prince actually secretly let out a sigh. Jiu Si straightened Su Huaibei's head, and asked him why he wasn't happy. This pretentious little bay finally took Jiu Si's hand. Why don't you admit you're the princess? Ask the questions on your mind. Although I haven't yet gone to the general's residence to propose marriage, but after this matter is resolved, returning to the capital, I haven't finished speaking yet. Jiu Si let out a burst of laughter. Unexpectedly, he actually got upset over just a casual remark of mine. He reached out and lightly, playfully tapped Su Huaibei's chin. So impatient to marry me. I don't even remember who told me to be more reserved back then. Su Huaibei gently pressed his hand to his face. I was wrong. I didn't know back then that I would be so completely under your spell now. Amidst their intimacy, No Air rushed over from the other side. The group started walking up the mountain. Jiu Si and Su Huaibei immediately followed. Arriving at the back mountain, they finally made a significant discovery. The area the village chief said was a graveyard was filled with red flowers. Several young people were tilling the land. Jiu Si, observing secretly from the side, recognized the type of flower. This plant is called Shoya flower. It's the raw material for the immortal umbrella. See, those young people are still chatting idly. Such a fine prince, not staying in the capital, but running off to our place, out of sheer boredom. When do you think he'll arrive? One of the young men looked thoughtful. That man's no good. But the young lady by his side is quite lovely. Such delicate skin and tender flesh. I wonder what it tastes like. Several people spoke to him with extreme levity. This made Jiu Si instantly feel like killing someone. The mark on his forehead gradually appeared. However, Su Huaibei suddenly covered his ears, preventing him from hearing those filthy words anymore. Under his comfort, the mark between my brows is fading again. This makes Bai Wanzi quite puzzled. Aren't you angry? Given your usual style, you should have already killed them. Please give me more. I have a fiancé now. He'll naturally handle such matters. The two were discussing how to deal with the group. Suddenly, several hidden weapons were shot from behind. Su Huaibei quickly embraced Jusi and dodged the hidden weapons. A masked assassin wielding a short dagger was seen, leaping towards them. Su Huaibei reacted swiftly, drawing his sword, parrying the opponent's attack. Jiu Si was secretly startled. It wasn't a villager, but an assassin. Then, a voice sounded from behind her. Little girl, this isn't a place you should be. The prince and the prime minister's daughter were a well-matched couple, deeply in love. But why does the girl say her father might fight the prince? Back to the previous episode. A villager, taking advantage of the chaos, raised his sickle to strike at Jiu-Si. With a clang, Huaibei quickly darted forward, knocking the sickle away with his sword. Several villagers, realizing their inferiority in strength, fled in panic. At that moment, sporadic sounds came from the bushes on the other side. Su Huaibei raised his sword. I was about to wave away the newcomer. But upon closer inspection, it was Imperial Envoy Su Jining arriving with his guards to provide support. He cupped his hands and reported to Su Huaibei that he had received a message from Miss Wang, knowing that Wang Chang intended to send people to assassinate the prince. Therefore, he came to provide assistance. Su Huaibei's expression changed. It seems we'll inevitably have a direct confrontation with Wang next. As expected, on their way down the mountain, they saw a group of people approaching with torches. Su Huaibei stopped 94 behind the mountain. I wonder if Prince Duan knows about Lord Wang's unauthorized actions. Wang Chang wasn't worried in the least. He hadn't planned on leaving Su Huaibei alive from the start. He planned to claim credit from Prince Dun afterwards. Then he ordered Wang Mi to be brought out. He already knew that Wang Mi had secretly cooperated with Su Huaibei. He kicked Wang Mi hard. You traitor. Just like your mother. You both look down on me, don't you? Wang Mi, who had been brutally abused, secretly took out a hairpin hidden in his sleeve. At that moment, Wang Chang's face was suddenly cut by a flying projectile. He touched his wound. I never imagined that Su Huaibei, already at his wit's end, would dare to attack me. Suddenly, Wang Mi stood up, taking Wang Chang by surprise. He lunged forward. He plunged the hairpin into his stomach. His eyes were full of hatred. You don't deserve to mention me. The wine steward silently sighed. Wang Chang bullied his own daughter. He ultimately got what he deserved. With Wang Chang's death, many of his accomplices in Shangha village were also arrested. Jiu-Si watched as they were led away, her tone slightly sad. Many people will die this time, won't they? Su Huaibei touched his head. They must pay the price for what they did wrong. Living life, this is something others can't help with. It can only depend on themselves. Jiu-Si turned his head and said, You are different. You can rely on me. Seeing Su Huaibei's unnatural expression, he continued joking. If your highness ever finds life unbearable, remember to come find me. I'll also try the taste of a young pretty boy. These words triggered a sense of crisis in Su Huaibei. He pulled Jiu-Si into a hug. I didn't expect you to have thoughts about a young pretty boy. Jiu-Si hurriedly explained that it was all nonsense. The prince is divinely handsome. Having met the prince, my eyes can hold no one else. Su Huaibei held him in his arms. After returning to the capital, you can't be so unrestrained. Then Jiu-Si suddenly remembered a serious problem. He shyly scratched his face. Your Highness, I haven't told you yet. I left a note saying I was coming to find you. My father might send people to look for you. The general's daughter ran away from home to pursue her love. Only later did she realize the serious consequences. Her father probably won't let the prince off easily. Meanwhile, old Mu, heartbroken over losing you, is still battling the prime minister. The emperor hasn't attended court for over 10 days. This is causing widespread unrest. He, the only one who visited the emperor, the chancellor, gave a statement to reassure everyone. The chancellor said the emperor was simply being considerate, unable to be exposed to the wind, and that's why he hadn't left the palace hall. Then he counterattacked, saying that Mu Yuanzhang's demand for an explanation was a frame-up, with ulterior motives. This clearly aimed to disrupt the court, manipulating hearts and minds. Mu Yuanzhang, a mere military officer, was never good with words, and suddenly didn't know what to do. He could only turn and leave angrily. Su Huaibei, through reports from spies, deduced that something had happened in the capital. Therefore, the group prepared to leave Jiangnan. At this time, Jiu-Si was still bidding farewell to Wang Mi. Wang Mi felt slightly worried about the unconventional things he had done in the eyes of the world. Jiu-Si comforted him, saying that being unconventional was simply not conforming to the world's gaze, but what they considered correct was correct. He grasped Wang Mi's hand. If you were given another chance, you would undoubtedly still do the same. This is. Tears glistened in Wang Mi's eyes. Although I haven't known Jiu-Si for long, I deeply admire his open-minded attitude. Jiu-Si also greatly admires Wang Mi, inviting him to visit the general's mansion in the capital sometime in the future. He had barely finished speaking when Su Huaibei pulled him away, using the excuse of time constraints. On the carriage, Jiu-Si laughed heartily, teasing Su Huaibei about being a henpecked husband. He's even jealous of the vinegar she uses. Enraged and embarrassed, Su Huaibei pinched Jiu-Si's cheeks. Stop laughing. Jiu-Si, whose face was pinched into a bun shape, quickly begged for mercy, asking him to let go. But after Su Huaibei let go, he smiled again. Suddenly, Su Huaibei leaned over and kissed him. He covered Jiu-Si's eyes. I told you not to laugh. Jiao stared blankly at the man before him, brimming with jealousy. If I had known there were such benefits, I would have laughed every day. Su Huaibei hugged him again. Don't look at me like that again. Or I'll risk getting beaten to death by your father. I also want to marry you home early. Jiao nestled against his strong chest, secretly delighted. Marry me home early. That would be my greatest wish. After several days of travel, Jiao finally returned to the cabin. He saw his father. She rushed over and took the initiative to apologize to her father for her mistake. This attitude probably means there's no coercion. She'll do it again next time. The old man was overjoyed to suddenly see his daughter return. He didn't bother to scold Jiao for running away from home. He grabbed her and started looking her over. Did you suffer any grievances while you were out? Your mother keeps talking about you. Go and see her. Zuweibai, who returned with him, also said, Cici. Go back and rest. These words aroused Mu Yuanzhang's suspicion. Cici. Isn't the prince being too contemptuous? If it's your first time visiting your significant other's home, and you're immediately bombarded by their brother and aunt, how would you react? At this moment, Su Huaibei felt the atmosphere was a little awkward. On either side of him sat Jiao older brother, Mu Hongwen, and his aunt, Cui Yueying. Mu Hongwen was the first to ask, Your Highness, do you know what pastries Jiao likes best, and what tea he prefers? Su Huaibei calmly answered, Cici loves lotus flowers the most, and prefers Longjing tea, but dislikes jasmine tea the most. Mu Hongwen challenged him again, knowing that these were all expected. Before he finished, Su Huaibei added, Cici also likes tree peonies, and prefers red dresses. Gold jewelry suits her better than silver. A single letter left Mu Hongwen speechless. I have to admit, in terms of understanding Hongdu in 94, even he, her elder brother, pales in comparison. After Mu Hongwen retreated in disgrace, the paternal aunt launched a new round of attacks. I wish to ask His Highness a question. Su Huaibei solemnly accepted the teacup from his aunt. The maid spoke frankly. His aunt said with a smile, Jiao was previously betrothed to the Lin family. At that time, he was like someone possessed, unstable in his disposition. The prince could see this. Upon hearing this, Su Huaibei immediately stopped. Meanwhile, Jiao and his mother, Lin Xiaoji, were in the courtyard. He had just learned that his aunt had gone to the front hall. Jiao held his mother's hand and spoke up for Su Huaibei. He's been very good to me. Look, I didn't feel any discomfort on my trip out. Lin Xiaoji touched Jiao head, voicing her worries. They're mainly worried that Jiao will be wronged. I'm worried that his past engagement will make Su Huaibei look down on him. Jiao looked serious. She won't. I've thought it through. I must marry him now. Regarding my aunt's question, Su Huaibei's eyes were full of determination. The eldest madam's worry. All of Baidu knows. The Lin family's son is unsuitable for marriage. Cici breaking off the engagement early is a fortunate event. Since I've already promised Cici that I will propose marriage, Bei wouldn't go back on his word. Seeing her daughter so resolute, Lin Xiaoji said, Then, do as you wish. And the mother wouldn't let him. Su Huaibei ended the meeting, and left the government office. Cheng Ziren had been waiting at the gate. He informed Su Huaibei that the emperor hadn't been seen for days, and today Grand General Mu and the chancellor had escaped. But the palace remained quiet. As Su Huaibei expected, something indeed happened in the palace. His face darkened. He entered the Sinang palace in the palace. Prince Duan reported to the Empress Dowager that his 13th brother had entered the palace. Although the Empress Dowager was Su Huaibei's biological mother, their mother-son relationship was not close. Hearing this news, her reaction was indifferent. Seeing that Prince Duan was offering his kindness without reason, the Empress Dowager had already anticipated that he must have something to ask for. Prince Duan has always been lecherous. All these years, if it weren't for the Empress Dowager, the prince and everyone else wouldn't have been able to protect themselves. This time, Prince Duan seems to have reformed himself. He swore he wanted to marry a wife. And I wish to marry the daughter of the great general. What exactly happened? Within the heavily guarded palace, the prince was actually pinned to the ground by a girl. Prince Duan was discussing his marriage with the Empress Dowager. A servant girl reported that Prince Xiaoyao requested help. Su Huaibei entered the hall, only to see the Empress Dowager and Prince Duan's aunt and uncle in a scene of filial piety. He got straight to the point. He inquired of the Empress Dowager about the emperor's recent illness, his inability to be exposed to wind. However, the Empress Dowager gave him a cold reception. She stated that the emperor's illness was simply a common cold, nothing else to it. Then he specifically presented a piece of warm jade to Prince Duan. Su Huaibei, however, felt uneasy inside. This is clearly the birthday gift I presented to the Empress Dowager before. I don't wish to continue courting displeasure. He bowed to the Empress Dowager and took his leave. After leaving the Sinang Palace, Su Huaibei, the Imperial Guard commander waiting by the carriage, received a cold reception. He felt indignant. But Su Huaibei was already used to being ignored by those in the carriage. He didn't dare to speak. He had just gotten into the carriage, when a hand reached out from the shadows and grabbed his collar. Before he could react, he was thrown down. He looked closely, and saw that it was Josie, who had just escaped from home. Inside the carriage, there was silence. Only the sound of their two pounding hearts remained. Shangjiusi then realized that his lecherous behavior seemed inappropriate. He hastily got off Su Huaibei. But he lost his balance. He was about to fall. Su Huaibei, his mount, put an arm around his waist. Their eyes met. The temperature around them seemed to rise again. Josie broke the ambiguous scene by speaking. He watched Su Huaibei's perfectly executed sit-ups. He said, "Your waist is really something else." The Empress Dowager slapped the table. No. Regarding Prince Duan's request to marry the daughter of the general's manor, his reaction was intense. Mu Yuanzhang holds military power. A prince's forbidden marriage. This is an extremely dangerous sign. His tone was severe. I see that Miss Mu is nothing but a vixen. After only a few meetings, she's charmed you into this state. To completely dissuade the prince from this idea, the Empress Dowager used both kindness and severity. Duaner, you must obediently listen to me. As long as you obey, I will not harm you. The prince rarely sees the Empress Dowager so enraged. He had already knelt down trembling, saying that he understood, but he still harbored evil intentions, secretly thinking, that young lady from the Mu family, I must have her. Meanwhile, Mu Fujiosi had just returned to the palace using the system's teleportation function. The maid, Akian, ran in, panicked. She informed them that Lin Ziqian dared to come to the door. Josie saw through the projection that Lin Ziqian was being beaten by her second older brother. Josie asked Akian about Lin Ziqian's purpose. It turned out he had come to invite the wine steward to his house to offer condolences for his wife, Shen Yingying. Unexpectedly, regarding his unreasonable request, the wine steward immediately refused to go. He swaggered out of the room. Lin Zi cares about appearances. It's not that he wants the money. Looks like there's going to be a good show at the Lin family. His ex-boyfriend invited him to his current wife's funeral. What a melodramatic plot. Most people would definitely avoid it. But Josie agreed without a word. He wants to see what the Lin family is up to. We've arrived at the Lin manor. Lin Yushan's camp is overcast. Josie's tone is full of sarcasm. Master Lin is so stoic. His daughter-in-law passed away so soon after her wedding. He can still force a smile and welcome guests while grieving. It's truly admirable. But Lin Yushan didn't show any anger at being exposed. But instead, unusually, he smiled and asked Josie to wait a moment, saying he would be right back. At that moment, Josie noticed someone in the distance staring at her. It was Su Huaiduan. Suddenly, a hand violently pushed her from behind. Josie fell into the water under the bridge in full view of everyone. She was rescued by others. She emerged from the water, disheveled. A maid led her away to change her clothes. After walking for some time, the maid led Josie to a secluded room. She informed Josie that there were clothes prepared for her and then left. Only then did Josie notice the neatly folded clothes on the table. She picked up the beautifully colored dress and playfully admired it. Even Bai Wanzi, presumably a pet or companion, marveled at it nearby. It's rare for Lingyu Mountain's aesthetics to be so captivating. Suddenly, a strange fragrance filled his nostrils. Immediately, Josie started to feel dizzy and unsteady on his feet. He muttered inwardly. He had been so careful, but he still fell victim. While he was defenseless due to the drug, Prince Duan, with a grim expression, appeared in the room. Josie, you've finally fallen into my hands. Josie struggled to stay upright. So Lin Yushan was helping Su Huaiduan with the plan. To bring me here. Su Huaiduan slowly approached. Wasn't Josie here to change clothes? This color, I've been longing for it for a long time. It really suits you. Meanwhile, Bai Wanzi was frantically preparing the antidote. Unfortunately, the antidote will take another 15 minutes to be ready for consumption. Otherwise, things could easily go wrong. Su Huaiduan approached, holding a garment. This dress was dyed in the palace dye house, taking considerable effort. Even Su Huaibei couldn't get his hands on this garment. Long thought, but boldly shocked. This good-for-nothing actually knows his relationship with Su Huaibei. Su Huaidu's face was full of pride. Every time they looked at each other, their eyes were full of affection. Just pay a little attention. Anyone would know their relationship. He sat down calmly. Tell Josie, you don't need to wait for Su Huaibei to save you. He's in the palace right now. He might not even be able to save himself. Upon hearing that Su Huaibei was in trouble, Joshua couldn't wait any longer. He disregarded the side effects of the hastily prepared antidote. He took the antidote and immediately drank it down. Su Huaiduan, thinking everything was under his control, still leered at Joshua and urged him to change clothes. Suddenly, Josie knocked him unconscious from behind with a hand strike. He knocked down Prince Duan. He quickly pushed open the door and left. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind, Su Huaibei, wait for me. The girl attended the funeral of her ex-fiancé's wife, but she was drugged by her ex-fiancé and the sleazy prince. They attempted to force themselves upon her. Luckily, the girl had a system cheat. She took the antidote in time and escaped. Jiu-Si learned from Prince Duan that Su Huaibei was in trouble in the palace. She hurried to help, but she found that the white pill only transported her to the palace gates. She asked why she wasn't transported inside the palace. The white pill, unusually, looked flustered. He explained that he had been suppressing himself. That unknown force is within the imperial palace, and it's deadly. Plus, the current situation is unclear. Entering the palace would only restrict my actions. Jios was extremely anxious, but he was helpless. He could only wait outside the palace walls. He huddled outside the palace. He just wanted to be closer to him. Go to Huaibei, you must not get into any trouble. Meanwhile, in the imperial palace, a woman paces back and forth anxiously. Consort Duan turns to look at Su Huai, who remains calm and composed. Your Highness, aren't you worried at all? Suddenly addressed, Su Huai lifts his teacup and replies. Would worrying help? Actually, Consort Duan's worries are excessive. The Emperor is ostensibly recuperating, but the Chancellor actually holds all the power. Today, the Chancellor used the excuse of redeploying the guards, and then news spread that the Emperor had mistakenly ingested a pill, and fallen into a coma. And I happened to meet with the Prince to see the Emperor today. If His Majesty doesn't wake up, I fear we both will be suspected. Su Huaibei was increasingly anxious about him. He advised, acting is strenuous. Why don't you sit down and rest? Consort Duan subconsciously protected her belly. She secretly thought, did he see through it? He was about to say something, but saw the Chancellor walking in from the doorway. Your Highness has remarkable self-control. Go to Huaibei and stir up trouble. That alchemist was a gift to His Majesty from the Chancellor. The Chancellor can still laugh now. That's truly remarkable composure. At this time, a palace maid rushed in, to inform everyone that His Majesty had awakened. The three of them hurriedly went to the Emperor's bedchamber. Noble Consort Zhuang was a step ahead, collapsed by the bedside, inquiring with concern about the Emperor's condition. Noticing the Imperial Consort slightly reddened eyes from worry, the Emperor felt pity too. I'm fine. You've suffered these past few days. Who is the mastermind behind the Emperor's collapse? And why did the Emperor recover so quickly? The powerful system cheat from his rebirth has inexplicably disappeared. The girl was panicked. A man appeared beside her. Who on earth is this person? Back to the previous episode. Consort Duan Gui was extremely anxious about the Emperor's coma. A palace maid rushed in to announce that the Emperor had awakened. Everyone immediately rushed over. The Emperor is awake. The Prime Minister's sudden change of demeanor towards the Emperor was quite shocking. He tentatively clasped his hands. Does your Majesty know who harmed you? The Emperor, with a confident expression, said it was the pill refined by the old Taoist priest Chernai, a pill presented to him by the Prime Minister. His voice was slightly flustered. Your Majesty, are you certain? After all, Her Imperial Majesty the noble consort also sent food. It hasn't been examined yet. Someone dared to slander his most beloved Imperial consort. The Emperor immediately flew into a rage. Does the Prime Minister think I'm so muddle-headed that I don't even know who's trying to harm me? Seeing the Emperor's fury, the Prime Minister dared not say another word. He lowered his voice, bowed, and took his leave. This matter. On the palace roof, a man in black secretly muttered to himself. The Emperor's old temper is still unbearable. The one who appeared beside him is clearly the blackened version of the white orb. Black orb. This man is Prince Jing, Su Huaijing. Black orb leaned into his shoulder and asked, your goal is to ascend the throne. Why save the Emperor? Su Huaijing silently adjusted his clothes. What good would killing my brother do me now? The Grand Minister is far more difficult to deal with than my Imperial brother. He said this as he reached out and opened the teleportation portal. Unlike Jiu-Si's use of the teleportation function, he seemed very skilled. Effortless, even. Now, there's someone else I need to see. Having said that, he shyly ducked into the portal, disappearing from the rooftop. Jiu-Si, still waiting outside the palace walls, saw the white pellet suddenly jump. The palace walls shimmered with light. Before he could finish speaking about that power, the white pellet vanished right before his eyes. Jiu-Si hurriedly called out to the white pellet, but there was no response. He panicked. Suddenly, he heard a voice next to him, Miss Mu, don't panic. Accompanied by a flash of red light, Su Huaijing appeared beside me. She smiled kindly at Jiu-Si. Hiding the system was only a temporary measure. I didn't expect that the power that suppressed by Wanzi before was actually Su Huaijing. Why does she also have a system cheat? I thought I was the only one, the unique chosen one, reborn. Who would have thought another child of destiny would appear, and their strength completely crushes my own? Jiu-Si was quite shocked at this moment. I never imagined that King Jing also possessed a system. What is his goal? King Jing stated that he had no ill intentions. The reason he shielded by Wanzi was because he was worried that 94 would use the system to escape before he could speak. Since we're already talking, there's no need to keep the system shielded. He snapped his fingers, releasing the still wailing white ball. Both are ball-shaped. The black ball, who prides himself on his composure, is quite disgusted with the white ball, because it's so noisy. The released white ball tumbled around. I'm protesting. Not only am I locked in this dark room, they won't even let me watch my Chobao cartoons. It's outrageous. Jiu-Si grabbed his tail, pulling him back. You can't beat them and you're still making such a fuss. It's so embarrassing. Jing Wang stood with his hands clasped in front of him. I just came to say hello after discovering another person with a system. Miss Mu, please don't mind it. Then, with a whoosh, he disappeared in the red light. Bai Wanzi hugged her little lamb tail, looking aggrieved. Host, that person just now was this world's son of destiny. We shouldn't antagonize him. Heaven's pet is a joke. Jiu-Si feels the same way. Su Huijin looks at me like I'm a helpless cat or dog. This feeling is awful. He couldn't help but grab the white dumpling and furiously knead it. Your family's system is emitting. You look like you're just giving yourself away. But speaking of which, Su Huijin, as a prince, his destiny is to be emperor. Does Su Huibei know what he wants to do? Thinking of this, he immediately set off, white ball, attacking. Inside the imperial study, Su Huibei was still dealing with government affairs late into the night. He noticed a sound coming from the window. He immediately turned his head. Jiu-Si hopped in through the window, holding up her skirt. I heard your highness was trapped in the palace, so I came to find you. Su Huibei's expression softened instantly. It's nothing. It's just that consort Duan is pregnant, and the emperor fell into a coma. That's why I came to the palace to visit. It seems Su Huibei has no idea what Su Huaqing is thinking. Otherwise, the two brothers would have clashed long ago. Su Huibei walked over and grasped Jiu-Si's shoulder. Do you know how reckless you are, coming to take? If someone sees you protecting me, it's dangerous. But Jiu-Si didn't care at all. I originally knew, but when I saw the prince's face, I got all dizzy. He leaned close to Su Huibei's ear. Your Highness, if one day you're no longer a prince, you should become a professional pickpocket. I guarantee I'd be able to pickpocket you every time. Having said that, he lightly kissed Su Huibei's ear. After doing this, he chuckled. His daily pleasure now. I just called that straight mail website. Unexpectedly, he suddenly reached out and touched my face in Huibei. He pulled me into his arms. Didn't I tell you not to do this to me? After saying that, his gaze towards Jiu-Si turned cold. On the surface, he's a righteous prince. But secretly, he's a total wife-doting maniac. Hugging and kissing constantly is one thing. He even brought his partner to handle government affairs. Fortunately, even if Su Hui had the potential to become a tyrannical emperor, after experiencing 5,000 years, Jiu-Si, whose youthful spirit remained, always kept a clear head. While assisting in reviewing the memorials, he discovered something amiss. It was a report submitted by the imperial guards of the capital. People from Shilin were fighting in the back alleys of a brothel. It was originally just a trivial matter. But the case file says, unknown. Usually, in cases like this, the reason is simply drunken brawling. Leaving it blank is conspicuous. Plus, the suspect, Shilin, is someone Su Huibei knows. Although he has a violent temper, he wouldn't start a fight with someone. It seems someone wants me to investigate further. Su Huibei decides to delve deeper into the case. He brought Jussi to a room. Several heavy bookshelves lined the room. As soon as they sat down, a gap in the bookshelves suddenly opened. A familiar figure emerged from behind. It was Cheng Zirwei, the scholar they had met at Qingshan bookstore. Jussi and Cheng Zirwei had worked closely together on the case of the immortal scattered leaves. Upon seeing each other, they bickered as usual, giving him the side eye. Cheng Zirwei knew very well that the prince was a jealous person. Not daring to chat with Jiu-Si for long, he went straight to the point. He had already guessed that Su Huibei had come because of the Stone Forest fight. The strange thing about this matter is that Shilin not only went against his nature and participated in the fight, but also, unusually for him, he went out alone that day. While Cheng Zirwei was rambling on, Su Huibei suddenly grabbed Jussi's hand. This startled Jussi. With acquaintances present, Jussi dared not act presumptuously. He coughed lightly and silently withdrew his hand. But Su Huibei grabbed his hand tightly again. They both looked at each other. The deep affection in their eyes seemed to ignite the air around them. Both of them blushed instantly. They turned their heads away. But Jiu-Si's worry was completely unnecessary. After all, they were sitting in front of a bookworm who was a lifelong bachelor and had never dated. Cheng Zirwei didn't realize the change in atmosphere at all. He continued to recount the details of the case. After listening to his account, Jiu-Si realized. This case was deliberately brought to the prince's attention. The answer is probably not simple. He looks like a fool. Or you could continue to infiltrate the enemy and investigate. The news confirmed a saying. A child with a wife is a treasure. A child without a wife is like a weed. Cheng Xiaoqiao immediately protested to the prince about this unreasonable arrangement from Jiu-Si. He is a scholar who came to the capital to take the imperial examination. Little did we know the prince had already stopped fighting. Husband and wife are of one mind. I listened to Cici. What's it like dating the prince? It's probably like, whatever you want, I'm willing to give it to you. Even a courtyard thousands of miles away. The two secretly built a whole city, then returned to the prince's mansion. Jiu looked at Su Huai, secretly wondering why he was so insecure. He even gets jealous if she glances at Cheng Ziren. While still pondering, he looked up and saw the peach blossoms filling the garden. How could there be peach blossoms in the capital at this time of year? It turned out that when he left Jiangnan before, Su Huaibei saw that Jiu was very reluctant to part. So I had that courtyard replicated here, so he can come visit whenever he misses it. As the saying goes, the myriad flowers of the pavilion lure one's shadow. Jiu-Si was completely engrossed in admiring the beautiful scenery of the garden. Without paying attention, his foot slipped. He almost fell. Luckily, Su Huaibei caught him in time. Jiu-Si looked up at Su Huaibei, expressing her great fondness for him. Su Huaibei smiled faintly. Only fond of this courtyard? Jiu-Si pointed at his strong and handsome face. Of course, she liked the man before her even more. The scene shifts to Lin Manor. The Prince Duan, knocked unconscious by Jiu-Si, just woke up. The moment he got up, he immediately inquired about Jiu-Si's whereabouts. Lin Yushan informed Jiu-Si that he had already returned to the manor before Jiu-Si woke up. The plot failed. Su Huaiduan unleashed his fury on Lin Yushan, kicking him to the ground. He declared him useless. Though Lin Yushan felt resentment in his heart, he could only silently endure it. The next day, Cheng Ziruan, entrusted with an important mission by Jiu-Si Wei, came to the Shi residence to gather information. The journey into the Shi residence was surprisingly smooth. The maidservants were all exceedingly respectful towards me. No one knows my relationship with the king of Xiaoyao. I'm just a poor scholar. What could Shiling possibly want? Overthinking is pointless. I can only react as the situation unfolds. After all, the matter is settled. Only then will I have the chance to borrow the power of the Duke of Xiaoyao for revenge. He saw Shirlene from afar, surrounded by a group of maidservants. It seems his injuries are no longer serious. He even seems quite comfortable. Shirlene saw Cheng Ziren, and immediately greeted him enthusiastically, saying that he needed his help with something. Cheng Ziren feigned an honored expression. Sisher never imagined he would be able to work for the young master. Shirlin walked over with his cane. He familiarly clapped him on the shoulder. He pointed to the booklet on the table. Top student of Qingshan Academy. I, Cheng Ziren's elder brother, have heard of it for a long time. It's here. Cheng Ziren reached out to pick up the booklet. Shirlin immediately stopped him. He said, this is a difficult favor to grant. You must guarantee absolute secrecy. Cheng Ziren feigned anger. Brother Shir, if you don't trust me, then forget it. I, Cheng, possess nothing of value. And I can't be of much help to you. Seeing this, Shirlin quickly released him. He chuckled, saying he was just being cautious. Cheng Ziren opened the booklet and looked. He was shocked. This was actually a test for the imperial examination. No wonder Shirling suddenly became so attentive to him. So he wanted to cheat on the martial arts examination. He is a prince, second to none, yet, why does he always lack a sense of security? In the imperial palace, the emperor and Su Huaibei discuss how to handle the cheating scandal in the imperial examination. He entrusts the matter entirely to his capable younger brother. Su Huaibei, as usual, silently bows, assuring his elder brother. As he is leaving, the emperor calls him back. He asks him if he resents the empress dowager. Su Huaibei remains silent for a moment, saying he's not a saint. Watching Su Huaibei's departing back, the emperor secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he left the palace. Su Huaibei reported the solution to Cheng Ziren and comforted him. With this achievement, the abyss matter, then there's no need to worry anymore. But Cheng Duran felt this approach was too cruel, ruining the opportunities of thousands of students, just to lure the snake out of its hole. Did Jussi know he was going to do this? Su Huaibei paused. He knew Jussi would never agree with his actions. This question seemed to rip open a wound hidden deep within his heart for many years. Clearly, we are half-brothers, sons of the same mother. Yet I am so different from my imperial brother. The court openly discusses me, a son of the Ma clan. They pity and mock me for not being favored by my birth mother. The irony is, my brother's animosity towards the Empress Dowager dispelled his suspicions, and he entrusted me with important responsibilities. Born into an imperial family, perhaps I shouldn't have expected true affection. Su Huaibei recalled that bright girl. And her? She would trust me completely. Unknowingly, he had ridden his horse to the general's mansion. Su Huaibei also felt that he was quite impetuous. Like a greenhorn, he ran to 94's house. But since he's here, he'll just wait here until dawn. To meet his sweetheart, he leaned against the wall, eyes closed, dozing off. Suddenly, a finger playfully poked him. It was 94, who saw Su Huaibei arrive through the system. So I secretly slipped out of the portal. He called Su Huaibei a blockhead. Late at night and a long way, he didn't even think to secretly tell me. But Su Huaibei suddenly hugged him, saying he just wanted to see him. Nothing important. Sensing Su Huaibei's unusual mood, Jiu Si hurriedly asked if the palace had said anything. Su Huaibei explained his plan to him. So your majesty plans to use Cheng Xiren to sell answers to cheating students through Shilinyuan? Then, those with similar answers will be identified as participants in the cheating. Jiu Si was shocked. This means that some innocent students will also be wrongly implicated. Su Huaibei said he would try his best to avoid harming the innocent. He tentatively asked Jiu Si if he thought he was too ruthless. It's rare to see Su Huaibei so cautiously seeking an answer. Jiu Si felt a pang of worry. His eyes were firm. The prince isn't heartless. He's just in this situation. No matter what decision you make, I will accompany you. It's clearly providing the prince with cultivation secrets. But why does he look like a great calamity is about to befall him after reading it? Ever since Jiu Si learned from Su Huaibei about the emperor's handling of the examination cheating scandal, he'd been harboring a nagging worry. It seemed the emperor entrusted Su Huaibei with the matter because he valued him. But once exposed, he would make enemies everywhere in court. He wouldn't stand a chance. And then there's Su Huaijing, that son of destiny. While Su Huaibei is just a mortal, if I confronted him directly, wouldn't I be instantly annihilated? Thinking this, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He had learned about the Tao of cultivation in the previous 5,000 planes. Perhaps he could write down the method and give it to Su Huaibei. As night fell, Su Huaibei returned to the prince's mansion, exhausted. He'd been extremely busy lately dealing with the scientific examination ceremony. He hadn't even had time to cultivate for several days. Seeing Cece, he suddenly started, entering the room. The person he had been longing to see was actually in the room. He didn't know when she had arrived. Jiu Si was fast asleep, allowing Su Huaibei to poke his cheeks. Without waking up, Su Huaibei gently picked Jiu Si up. I was just about to put him in bed, when something suddenly fell down. He picked it up and saw. It was a martial arts manual called Qi Cultivation Method. The handwriting was Jiu Si's, but the contents seemed to be a cultivation manual for a small monster. He had just thrown it away carelessly. This is Jiu Si waking up from his sleep. As soon as he sat up, he saw Su Huaibei studying the cultivation manual he had brought. Su Huaibei handed the book back to him, while chiding him for his absent-mindedness. Jiu Si smiled and said the manual was meant for him. At this, Su Huaibei was even more puzzled. It's actually for his own girl. He looks so excited. He urges her to quickly see if she has any insights. It would be even cooler if she could cultivate immortality in one step. Su Huaibei diligently flipped through the pages as Jiu Si instructed, but secretly wondered why she gave him the cultivation manual. After a long while, Bai Wanzi noticed Su Huaibei hadn't reacted at all. Secretly questioning, could it be that the prince lacks spiritual aptitude? Jiu Si immediately retorted, even if placed in the world of cultivation, Su Huaibei would certainly be a standout among men. There are no omissions in the books. The only reason can be that the spiritual energy concentration of this world is insufficient. Thinking of this, Jiu Si secretly regretted that I should have brought some spiritual energy back from the Xianxia world then. But Su Huaibei suddenly grabbed his hand. His gaze at Jiu Si was also very serious. Seeing that he didn't say a word, Jiu Si tentatively called out, Su Huaibei. Su Huaibei's face was full of shock. You're not from this world. Does he intend to leave me? What if your significant other said you weren't human? What would your reaction be? A normal person's reaction would be to immediately deny it, of course. But Jiu Si didn't want to do that. Because his reborn self truly wasn't from this world. He just hadn't avenged his great revenge yet. Revealing the truth would only cause him to be treated as a monster. He secretly asked Bai Wanzi if he could tell Su Huaibei the truth. Bai Wanzi was full of worry. Many hosts have been treated as monsters after confessing their origins to their lovers. The outcome is cruelly certain. Jiu Si's eyes are firm. He has absolute confidence in Su Huai. So he spoke, I am Mu Jiu Si. The real, complete Mu Jiu Si. You don't need to doubt that. Then he recounted how he was deceived by a scumbag in his past life, suffered the extermination of his entire family, and his subsequent rebirth. He told Su Huaibei everything. After recounting everything, Jiu Si was in tears. He also confessed that Su Huaibei's previous memory lapse was because he chose to grow up instantly. After saying all this, his eyes flickered slightly. He was afraid that Su Huaibei wouldn't accept his identity. Su Huaibei pulled him into a hug. As long as it's you, I accept everything. His heart was now full of pity for Jiu Si. He had gone through such painful things. If only I could bear it for him. Jiu's eyes welled up again. Sure enough, he didn't have a trustee. It's a good thing he told him everything. But the next second, saleswoman Cece quickly appeared. He held up the cultivation manual, and told Su Huaibei to read it carefully and thoroughly. After all, his lifespan was far longer than that of ordinary people. If Su Huaibei doesn't cultivate, then the 10 days they spend together won't be many. To persuade Su Huaibei, he blinked his eyes pitifully. If you don't cultivate, 100 years later, I'll be alone. Can you bear it? This move is simply a killer blow. Su Huaibei immediately took a secret manual and began to cultivate. It didn't take long before true energy gathered around Su Huaibei, who was diligently cultivating. Such rapid progress left Jussi speechless. Is he a genius or something? When Su Huaibei finished a stage of his cultivation, Jussi immediately approached him, asking how he felt. Su Huaibei embraced Jussi. I will work hard to catch up to you, and become someone worthy of you. The day of the scientific expedition arrived soon. Cheng Ziren stood among the bustling crowd, secretly speculating. How many people here bought answers from Sherlin? Suddenly, a man hurrying past bumped into his shoulder. By the time Cheng Ziren reacted, something had already been slipped into his hand. What exactly was this thing? And who had given it to him? Whether it's modern times or ancient times, unmarried men and women probably can't escape the fate of being urged to marry. Faced with the emperor's urging to marry, how would the prince respond? Back to the last episode. Cheng Ziren, taking advantage of the moment when no one was looking, secretly opened the note that had been slipped into his hand. It read, "Everything is ready." He sighed inwardly, thinking that the other innocent students in this examination hall didn't know their efforts were all for naught. After the examination, the students judged to have cheated in the imperial examination were all taken into custody. My subordinate reported this matter. Most of those involved are sons of prominent families. Their family influence and pressure are immense. These people are truly difficult to apprehend. But Mu Yuanzhang is not one to fear power. The imperial examination must not be undermined in this way. Those who should be arrested will not be spared. As for how to deal with them, I'll have to ask the prince again then. He glanced out of the corner of his eye. He found that the prince had appeared beside him at some point. Su Huaibei solemnly stated, "Such a coincidence. General Mu wouldn't mind me crashing at his place for a meal, would he? He makes crashing a meal sound so matter-of-fact. He's certainly been influenced by a female ruffian." In the tomb's office, Jiu-Si and Bai Wanzi chat idly in the courtyard. Su Huaibei has been busy arresting people these past few days. I haven't seen him for several days myself. Until the next second, Su Huaibei appeared before them. He was wearing his military uniform, which he doesn't usually wear. He looked valiant and dashing, even more majestic. Jiu-Si joyfully threw himself into his arms. Su Huaibei carefully protected him, afraid he might be scratched by his armor. After a tender moment, Jiu-Si looked up and asked him how the arrangements for the scientific examination ceremony were going. Su Huaibei replied, "Most of the people have been apprehended, but the ringleader, Sherlin, relying on his ancestors' contributions to the dragon, remains defiant to this day. Unfortunately, I can't force a marriage. Otherwise, it would cause too much trouble, and Huang Tsong would lose face." Jiu-Si looked at her husband's haggard face, full of heartache. She secretly racked her brains. Since we can't make a public scene, a little intimidation from the shadows will do, right? Midnight. There was a slight noise in Sherlin's bedroom. He opened his sleepy eyes, just about to call out, but the sight before him made his pupils constrict in shock. He saw a sharp sword hanging above his bed, with a threatening skull hanging from it. Someone could do such a thing so quietly. Sherlin was so scared, he wet his pants. A few days later, Su Huaibei reported to the emperor that the main culprit had confessed. The mastermind was Prince Duan. The emperor's face darkened. "I never imagined that Prince Duan would dare to do such a thing." Su Huaibei comforted him, "Your imperial brother, rest assured. After this matter, no one will dare to be so presumptuous again." The emperor turned to look at Su Huaibei. "Thanks to you. Speaking of which, you're not young anymore. Do you have any thoughts about getting married?" This wasn't the first time the emperor had brought up this topic. Su Huaibei was about to refuse as usual, but I suddenly remembered 94's bright face. With a serious expression, he said to the emperor, "Your imperial brother, I already have a beloved." The cold-faced Yen Wang actually has a beloved. Even the emperor was incredibly curious. He pressed Su Huaibei to reveal who his beloved was. Without a foolproof plan, Su Huaibei wouldn't easily reveal 94's identity. He only said, "Your imperial brother has also met him. But that young lady hasn't accepted me yet, so it's hard to say." Seeing his unwillingness to elaborate, the emperor didn't press him. He quickly changed the subject. "The matter of the imperial examination and Wu Bai has been investigated. Since Prince Duan is restless, let's have him stay in the heavenly prison for a while." After reporting on official matters, Su Huaibei left the palace. Jiu-Si had been waiting in the carriage for a long time. He looked at the man walking from afar with a love-struck expression. His Royal Highness is even more handsome and extraordinary. Seeing Jiu-Si's return to his usual glib and smooth-talking self, I knew he was in a good mood. Since Su Huaibei handled the imperial examination ceremony, Jiao Si has been worried sick about him. Now things are coming to light. Naturally, he feels much better. Su Huaibei gets into the wedding car, and tells Jiao Si that he has told his imperial brother about the girl he loves. But worry shows on Jiao Si's face. In the previous life, the emperor already distrusted Su Huaibei. If he knew that Su Huaibei was close to the general's daughter, it would only further arouse the emperor's suspicion. Seeing Jiao Si so worried, Su Huaibei asked for the first time what his fate was in his previous life. Jiao Si told him that in his previous life, Su Huaibei was killed by the emperor. He was greatly shocked after hearing this. I actually died at the hands of my imperial brother. Jiao Si still frowned, depressed and unable. Su Huaibei gently touched his face. Don't overthink it. Am I not still doing fine now? And you still have me. I wouldn't bear to leave first. Jiao Si leaned close to the man's cheek, preparing to shoot. Suddenly, the carriage jolted. Jiao Si fell directly into Su Huaibei's embrace. Su Huaibei caught him. His small body was too thin. If I had met you sooner, I would have forced you to practice martial arts. It's better to build up muscles. Jiao Si's damn competitive spirit was immediately ignited. He revealed his arm, indicating he could train now too. Su Huaibei took his hand. Martial arts training requires hardship. Right now, he just wants to pamper Jiao Si. How could he let her tire herself out, secretly sweating profusely? I don't know which reckless devil almost suffocates me every time. As soon as she finished speaking, the man embraced her again. If that's the case, then I must practice even more. The carriage arrived at the entrance of the general's mansion. Yen immediately noticed her mistress's unusual state. I'm just sitting in the carriage. Why is there a veil now? Seeing Jiao Si dash past, she immediately asked the young lady, are you feeling unwell? Little did she know, someone's face was burning up. Mama, Su Huaibei made me look like this. How am I supposed to face anyone? The girl had a fun date, but when she got home, she found her whole family waiting for her. Could it be that her early romance was discovered? Jussi looked to the side. Her father's walking stick was even taken out. Mu Yuanzhang patted Jussi's head. We murmured, you've grown up. It's time you understood these things. So the emperor sent him to the border as a garrison officer. Mu Yuanzhang, to ease the tension, deliberately sent him to the 9 divisions. I won't see father. Don't you dare cry. The old lady sighed, and said helplessly, with so many generals throughout the country, why did it have to be you? Mu Yuanzhang said he understood your majesty's considerations. As a subject, it is my duty to share your majesty's burdens. However, it was indeed too sudden. There wasn't even a whisper of it beforehand. This was by Wanzi, after secretly gathering information, quietly telling Zhuo Si, the 4th-rank general originally assigned to the military post. No one knows why the emperor suddenly changed his mind. Mu Yuanzhang didn't show it, but he secretly worried. This time leaving the capital, with dozens of people in his family, he still needed to find someone to entrust them to. He needed to find a chance to see the prince. But this prince was perfect in every way. Except he always kept thinking about Nan Nan. Thinking of this, he subtly reminded Jiao Si, my dear daughter, one shouldn't limit oneself to the people right in front of them. You should look further afield. There are so many other fine young men out there. Although Jiao Si had no intention of being unkind, she still smiled sweetly and agreed with her father. Your daughter will definitely keep her eyes on the bigger picture. She won't be confined to this small world. But as soon as I finished speaking, a voice came from behind me. Cici, how do you want to sleep forever? Jiao Si jumped. I'm really screwed. Talk of the devil. And he appears. He was sneaking away, feeling dejected. But the prince grabbed me. Su Huibiai's face showed weakness. Could it be that Cici is going to abandon me? Jussi hadn't spoken yet. Several older brothers had already started to tighten the spell. They helped Su Huibiai accuse him of being fickle. The fans were surprised again. When did Su Huibiai actually win over his older brothers? Su Huibiai whispered. He said to him, dare you say anything more? Long-term perspective, Mu Yuanzhang speaks his mind on everything. Your Highness, you came at the right time. I have something I want to ask you. Jiao Si took this opportunity to quickly make a getaway. The two came to a deserted place to discuss the emperor's recent puzzling actions. Su Huaibei only told Mu Yuanzhang to be extra careful on this trip. Mu Yuanzhang said he wasn't afraid of fighting, but having someone to worry about makes all the difference. I'll leave this to you. Please take good care of things here for me. Finally, he looked at Su Huaibei. His expression was normal. He murmured, I entrust you with everything.